Good evening. This is the April 22nd, 2019 Zoning Subcommittee for the Revere City Council. What do we have, Madam Clerk? Please.
Roll call of the Zoning Subcommittee. Councilor Nino. Here. Here. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky. Here. Councilor Rizzo is absent. And Chairman Zambuto. I'm sorry, ex officio member, Councilor Guanasso.
And the chairman is here.
The chairman's here. First item and only item on the agenda is Council Order 19-041, James George on behalf of Exonet Systems relative to the installation of a small cell wireless antenna on an existing National Grid utility pole near the intersection of 116 State Road and 4 Unity Ave.
Mr. George, would you like to come to the podium or you have someone else who would like to come up? Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, staff, and City of Revere residents. My name is Harron Rashus, and I'm the Director of External Relations at Exonet Systems, Inc. As you are aware, on January 22nd, 2019, Exonet applied for a permit to install a personal wireless service facility node on an existing National Grid wood utility distribution pole at the corner of 116 State Road and 4 Unity Avenue. The Federal Communications Commission has given municipalities such as Revere a presumptively reasonable period of time in which to act on such applications of 90 days. Today is the 90th day since Exonet's application was filed. Therefore, by law, the Revere City Council must reach a determination on our application tonight. At the city's April 8th Zoning Subcommittee meeting, Exonet's application was deferred to tonight. The entirety of the April 8th Zoning Subcommittee meeting revolved around concerns over the environmental effects of the radio frequency emissions of Exonet's equipment. In fact, the Zoning Subcommittee meeting minutes state that, quote, the special permit application will remain in committee until health-related scientific data is presented to the chairman. On behalf of Exonet, I have traveled the country speaking on state legislation regarding small wireless deployment. In almost every state, I have heard concerned citizens raise issues around the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions. While I do not agree with their assertions, I have also seen how passionate they are. I am not here tonight to address or argue with their concerns. Rather, I wish to speak to the legal issues around their concerns. Federal law is clear and unambiguous. Quote, no state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions, end quote. As long as Exonet's equipment complies with the FCC's regulations concerning emissions, which it does, you cannot even consider the environmental or health effects of radio frequency emissions in reviewing Exonet's application. To do so would be an open, illegal act by members of this council. As I'm sure you will agree, filing litigation should always be a last resort. Litigation, by its nature, creates an adversary relationship. However, it is my responsibility in my job as Exonet that when a municipality fails to consider or improperly rejects an application, I have to take that issue to federal court, and we have a very limited time to do so under federal law. Back in law school, I was taught that when advocating for your client, you should keep 3 things in mind. 1, argue the law. If the law is not on your side, then 2, argue the facts. And then if the facts are not on your side, 3, just argue. Well, in this case, the law is not on the side of arguing about radio frequency emissions, either on a factual or argumentative basis. In a similar case, Loudoun County, Virginia, rejected a personal wireless system installation out of concerns for radio frequency emissions. The United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled that the, quote, explicit statutory prohibition against regulating the placement, construction, and modification of wireless facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions is a limitation imposed by the Act on a council's authority. And the fact that a council relied on valid reasons to support its decision does not immunize its violation of a statutory limitation. The only way the City of Revere can now immunize itself from its violation of a statutory limitation is to approve Exonet's application, and I urge you to do so tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to let some committee members speak, and then I'll share my views. We'll call on the council president first.
Mr. Chairman, to the learned attorney, did the FCC ever in their wisdom ask why they're asking for an opinion from a local authority if they can do everything they say is by right and you can just do it and place it any way you want?
If you want, I can cite
So what's
you,
the purpose of us even being here? Why is your application before us for approval or disapproval if we have no authority to not approve it?
You had zoning authority. You had aesthetics authority. You had a variety of various things that you could consider. If we were putting a new pole in, for example, to say that spot on the sidewalk, no one could get around on a wheelchair. Things like that are well within the purview of this
That would be
council.
difficult when it's up in the air, but even so.
If we were putting a new pole in to put it on,
So, okay, so
There are many-
our authority is limited to the few basics that you have suggested, and
Correct.
we are not to be concerned with health.
correct.
It would be foolhardy upon us to not suggest to our community that these might be harmful to your health. That's part of our role in protecting the environment to which our residents live. And so we're not arguing that tonight because you enlightened me. But you did say one thing, the aesthetics of it. I don't think they're very aesthetically valuable to our community. So on that basis, I have concern. So I could go and the City of Revere's representation through our attorneys can go to the court and defend against that, saying that we think it's aesthetically does not enhance the neighborhood.
Unfortunately, the City of Revere has not passed, and you had until April 14th to do so under federal law, specific guidelines on the aesthetics. So this city has basically waived its right to do so at this point.
We're not afraid of litigation, I'll tell you that much, because on many occasions, we've litigated things that we thought was harmful to our community, and we were steadfast. And we're not looking to spend the taxpayers' money by any sense of imagination. But I know there is concern in the neighborhoods of our community of what's occurring. And when you were the first one that said it, when in your travels throughout the country, sir, many people were opposed to this. They weren't opposed to it for not a valid reason. They were opposed to it because of many valid concerns that they have. And rightfully so. They have a right to do that. So you've admitted that there is objection throughout the community, throughout the country.
However, Councilman Patch, the reason...
I'm not Councilman Patch. I'm
sorry.
sitting in another seat.
Oh,
I'm better looking, so I sat here because...
the rationale behind stopping cities from ruling on this is, number one, cities do not have... Basically, it was... I could quote you to the congressional report for the 1996 Act that cities or municipalities do not have the resources to make the determination, especially on a antenna-by-antenna basis for the health effects. That, therefore, the Congress deferred that to the FCC. If your constituents have an issue with this, I would recommend they have basically 4 options. Hold on one second here. This is who they should be addressing. They shouldn't be addressing this council because this is not a local issue.
This is not a local issue?
No, this is a nationwide issue. If they have an issue with it, they should be addressing the FCC. The FCC takes comments on these. The FCC takes comments on any issue that is appropriate to them. If you're a John Oliver fan, about 2-3 years ago, he actually caused the FCC server to crash by asking for comments on a different FCC issue.
One further and last
But
comment.
the other 3 people that you should be addressing, or refer your constituents to is Senator Warren, Senator Markey, and I believe Representative Clark is your representative? That is who they should be sending their letters to, because this is a federal issue. And it's regulated on a national basis.
They're not concerned about this.
What?
They're not concerned about this. They're keyed in on other issues. But I have one last point to make. When the presenter of your company came forward, Mr. George, and he stated all the facts and things, why didn't he state the section that you referred to, that these are our ways that we can go about, if we thought so fit, to deny the process? Why weren't we made aware of the reasons why we could deny?
You asked me that in a direct question.
That's a question.
My company is not going to get up here and say, oh, by the way, if you want to deny our permits, go through steps A, B, and C. However,
So,
I'm not going to stand here and lie to you.
It's
You
not
said-
an open, in fact, it's not a truthful presentation then, because you're supposed to enlighten us to go to some of these.
Actually, our application probably did say, this is how it meets this is how it meets this is how it meets that.
Thank you very much.
Council McKenna.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to know, is there any fee that you guys get for putting these antennas up? I'm just curious. Any fees that you get? Like if you, I know when we used to put them on buildings.
We're not putting them up out of the goodness of our heart, if that's what you're referring to.
No, I'm not asking you that. I'm
we-
asking you if you get any fees for putting these antennas up.
Extenet builds the antennas,
Yep.
and then we lease the antenna back to the carrier. So in the case of the one that's being under application in Revere, we lease that back to T-Mobile.
So you are
T-Mobile
getting a
does-
fee? You are getting a fee from the carrier?
Yes.
Okay, that's all
For
I
use of our
wanted.
equipment, yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Council Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few comments, and I gave you some information earlier that you can put into record, and I get that you may disagree with some of this, Mr. Chairman, but I wanted to give it to you on the record. I apologize, your name again?
Heron Rashus.
Mr. Rashus, I get it, you're the attorney and you're here to represent your company, and I respect that, and you've been honest so far to what I can feel. What I want to bring up is, obviously this is going to be a long process where I think your company is going to be coming forth with more and more of these over the coming months.
Not just our company, but
Well,
you're gonna
in
see-
other companies, I've
you're
already
gonna
heard.
see all the carriers
Correct.
coming in.
So it seems like, as from a city, we're starting off on the wrong foot. And I got to be honest with you, and I think that your company maybe has good intentions, but clearly you're here to make some money and you're here to do a job. But what I don't like, and I have to say this, is we have a public hearing for a reason, and we want to get input from the public. And one of the first meetings, there was a public input commentary from a fireman, and that fireman happened to be in uniform. And he was very clear and mentioned that he was speaking on his opinion. What I don't like is the fact that after that person stated his opinion for his reasons, he's very passionate about these cell towers, very passionate, he spoke about it, is post-meeting, we're getting emails about how he showed up in his uniform, what he showed up in, what he was driving with, the brotherhood that he was with, and then on top of it, to me it seemed as if there was a personal attack from his Facebook page. So am I to believe that every time there's a city council meeting and we're inviting the public to come up and comment, that we're going to go ahead and retaliate on their personal social media pages? Is that how your company is going to act? Because I find that to be very unprofessional.
Extenet, this is the first I'm hearing of that, and I can pretty much assure you Extenet had nothing to do with
I
it.
can tell you that from a city council, this noble body, and Councilor Zambuto, I highly doubt you would allow that, but if we're asking for public opinion, we may not like it either. We can take the hits, you can take the hits. We're the city council, that's part of our job. If you want to attack me, feel free to. You're coming up here for a proposal, you may get hit a few times as well. That's our job. But you leave the public out of it. If they have a comment, whether they're right or wrong, that's their right. And I'm just going to tell you that I will never tolerate that, and I would expect Councilor Zambuto not to tolerate that in his chambers either tonight. So I would hope that that's not the way you're going to operate, because we're going to go into this over the next few years where you want more of these, and you want us to work together.
First of all, as I said, Extenet had nothing to do with that. This is the first I'm hearing of it. That is
Well,
not the way we operate.
I would invite Mr. George up to explain that, because we received that email to the Madam Clerk, to Councilor Zambuto, and to other members of the council.
It's all right. Did you? It's all right.
Jim George, Extenet AT&T. The methodology behind that, and I understand that you're upset about it. In my experience, if a city official says it's a personal opinion, and even speaking with firemen of other places and police in other places, as a matter of record, they must say they're a personal opinion or they're speaking on behalf of the city. The Facebook thing, personal opinion or speaking on behalf of the city. Now, these go in the direction they're going to go in. If the thing happens on Facebook, that's all going to be spinning around like it's going to spin around. Typically, I don't do that. Now, the lieutenant, I felt, shouldn't have been in uniform if he's speaking personally. That's what I felt. That's my position on that, Mr. Keefe. He shouldn't have been in uniform if he was not speaking on behalf of the fire department, if he was speaking personally. So that's somewhat hypocritical on him. So I even mentioned it to build my record. That's relevant in a federal arena. It's relevant. So I built the record.
Thank you for clarity. Well, I just want to remind you, he made it very clear in both his social media page, which I totally think is off limits. You should see what they say about us on social media. We're not going to bring that up every day. We take those attacks. That's what happens. It's his freedom of speech. But what I will say, he made it very clear that it was his personal opinion, both in the council chambers and on his social media page. Very clear. Now, granted, he came in uniform, but many people come here after work in gas uniforms, and you name it. Teachers, whatever it may be. They sometimes uniforms with their names on them. And yes, it can be a little bit cloudy, but I just want to let you know that we're not going to go that route if we're going to continue some sort of a relationship down the road. I would expect that. Now, I think that as a respectful company, you wouldn't take that from the first time you're coming or the second time you've come here before us for a permit, that you're going to go and attack any public comment. Because I can tell you that more people are going to come up. This is obviously going to grab more attention. So should they fear that if they come up and speak out of uniform, or if they speak on behalf of what they feel as neighbors and as residents of the city, they're going to be mentioned and attacked? Is that something that they should fear?
I have a problem with the word attack, okay?
Okay, so their personal opinions are going to be. This person came as a resident, or as a representative of someone that represents the residents of the city. He's an employee of the city. He's an employee of the city of Revere. And he has a right to his opinion.
He does. If his statements are factually incorrect, I will correct them.
I have no problem with you correcting them in front of us, or if you had to send facts to the council and say that, just want to clarify that these facts are incorrect, I think that that's perfectly fine. But to go and to go after what he was wearing, how he arrived, the people he was sitting with, and then his social media page, I just think it was off limits. I think it's off limits. That's all I wanted. I wanted to make that very clear moving forward. Thank you, Councilor Zambo.
Well, one more thing.
Yes.
It's happened before in other areas. It has been litigated, and in the federal arena, I must clear the record up. So that is what I did, Mr. Keefe. Thank you very much for your time. Anybody else?
Councilor Janino, then Councilor Novoselsky.
Directly to me, or can I sit?
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few thoughts on the whole issue, and I figured subcommittee, if any, is the place to put them on the table. The first thing I just want to address to my colleagues and to the people watching is social media has absolutely zero place in this chamber. Zero. In any issue. The business that we conduct in this chamber should be conducted in the chamber. It can be communicated to us through phone calls, through emails, through the city clerk's office, but social media is not a place to discuss business. You want to talk about what you had for dinner, you want to talk about your family vacations, wonderful to talk about on social media, but it's not a place to conduct business. So I have an issue with that, number one. But sticking to this issue, as a city council, we have a lot to look at, right? We look at the aesthetics, we look at public safety, we look at what's best for our community, if it's providing a service to our residents. Those are all things that we put into perspective. This is a tough conversation, and this is probably one of the first, I would say, in my experience in the council, of having almost an adversarial relationship with the company and feeling this much animosity working on a project that could benefit our residents, but at the same time, we're looking at the big picture, we're looking at the public safety and the public health, and if it's something that, you know, in my motion, I'm going as far as to say I don't want this on schools, I don't want it on fire stations, I don't want it on public buildings, it shouldn't be right outside of a resident's bedroom window or that vicinity. So what concerns me about this is not going to be the only proposal that comes before us. This is one of, I'm sure, many. And as a city, we need to look at this very, very closely. And I understand some of the attorney's information that he presented this evening on what our restrictions are federally and legally, but this is one of many, and we really need to take a look at this with our solicitor, and we need to get our ducks in a row to make sure that in the future, we're prepared and educated as a council to deal with these when they come before us, so we're not stuck with our backs against the wall, making decisions that we're not comfortable with. And I will say I'm not comfortable with this. I feel as if we don't have all the information that we need, and I feel as if that it's something that, again, this sets a precedent, and that concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, Councilor, could I ask you a couple questions, please? You mentioned April 24th.
April 14th.
Oh, 14th, before, during your
Yes. April
oration
14th,
before, you mentioned April 14th.
Specific guidelines that we could have.
What did you mean by that?
I'd have to go back to the FCC order. And this, basically, the city of Revere does not have any specific cell phone, or not cell phone, but specific small wireless ordinance. If, you know, for example, and these are still things that you could do, what Member Nino said, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right? Janino. She doesn't want it on schools. She doesn't want, those still can be passed by this council. But in terms of pure aesthetics, and by that I mean there are cities that say, you know, to quote Henry Ford, you can get a Model T Ford in any color you want as long as it's black. There are cities that say, paint it black, paint it brown, you know, things like that. Those deadlines, I believe, you had to do within so many days of the act, though I'd have to double check the FCC report. I don't
So
recall.
then is it federal law or is just recommendations that we can't do that, or under what guidelines is that?
The outline for guidelines are in the Federal Communications Commission's third report and order and declaratory ruling of August 26th. No, I'm sorry, September 26th.
Okay.
Effective January 14th.
Okay, so basically, we can't deny it, but we can control it.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so, and that's what we've started. Our process has already started for that. Because
Now-
we have a public hearing tonight, sir, that was started before the 14th. So if once we pass it, there is a possibility that whatever we put in that ordinance could relate to everything that
Going
you're saying we
forward.
can't. Excuse me?
Going forward.
Well, as of the date we put in the start of the process. I'm not sure about that, but it's something I'd have to look at, because right now, with the telecommunications, if I'm correct, any applications cannot be started now until we finalize that ordinance.
That is incorrect.
Yeah, so,
Applications, you cannot put any moratoria on applications pursuant to the August FCC law. That would be any moratoria saying you can't start a new application. And even so, it works out that we've had municipalities tell us we're doing that, and the FCC order says proffered. So if we literally walk up to the clerk's office, drop that on the desk, and the clerk says, we're not accepting that, it's just like serving a subpoena. And I've done that as well, where you literally drop it at someone's feet, touched your foot, tough luck, you accepted it. I mean, that's the way it works. Now, that being said, I've looked at the plans for this pole, and there is absolutely zero within the range of guidelines that the FCC gives municipalities for this particular node. This node is on an existing pole. So there's nothing saying that the pole itself is not in the right spot because the pole's already there. I don't know how long it's been there. It's there. We work with NGrid to make sure that pole can physically support our equipment, is the right height for our equipment, the other pole owners. In addition, any rules, if you can't discriminate among different types of communication providers. Well, there already is cable on that pole. There already is landline telecommunications on that pole. So therefore, that pole already has...
There's no other tower in the pole, a cell tower.
That is considered under federal law a type. In other words, you can't discriminate between different types of service. So as long as there's communication services on that pole, ours is just a different type of service. I get all the time, I sit down with various city councils on aesthetics, and they talk about, oh, we don't like the way these look. Yet you go out there and you start looking around their own city at some of the things the electric company, the telephone company, the cable company have put on those poles. Our towers, and they're not towers, our nodes. There's a very big legal distinction between towers and nodes. Our nodes are roughly the same size as those rusty electric transformers that are all over the place. And quite honestly, ours don't rust because they're made of aluminum because of the type of material to allow the...
Could you provide us with that FCC information, where we can find it?
Sure. I can give you the exact site if you want to write it down and look it up.
And while you're looking at, I don't know if Mr. George is aware of the site plan review recommendations that were put out. Mr. George? March 26th.
Yes.
Now, do you have an issue with those?
The site plan review letter of recommendation for denial? Sorry. Please clarify what you're saying, sir.
On March 26th, the Site Plan Review Committee issued 3 recommendations to ensure structural integrity of the antenna, that the owner shall conduct periodic inspections at least once every year by a qualified independent engineer, with the results of these inspections being provided to the building inspector on an annual basis. That's number 1. Number 2, the owner of the telecommunication facility shall provide documentation showing that the telecommunication facility is in compliance with all applicable federal and state requirements. Evidence of compliance must be submitted every 12 months to the Department of Inspectional Services, City of Revere. And number 3, the telecommunication facility attached to an existing pole shall be equipped with an appropriate anti-climbing device to prevent unauthorized access.
These were the recommendations of the site plan review letter?
Yes, sir.
For this particular site?
Well, this one is for Unity Ave, so I'm guessing that it was
Okay.
for both.
I don't think we have a problem with that, no.
We read that all the time. Those are standard.
Okay.
As for the FCC order, and you can either write this down or rely on the video, the name of the case is in the matter of accelerating wireless broadband deployment by removing barriers to infrastructure investment, accelerating wireline broadband development by removing barriers to infrastructure investment, case numbers WT 17-29, WC 17-84, FCC 18-33, issued September 26th, 2018. If you do a Google search on FCC order, Federal Communications Commission, FCC 18-133, and make sure you find the final order because there are a ton of drafts up on Google as well, you should be able to find the order on the FCC website pretty easily.
Now, that's an order. Now, under what rule did they order that?
That was a declaratory ruling.
And what sections of their rules?
Only parts of it went into the sections of the rules. FCC's declaratory rulings under federal law are to be considered highly persuasive by courts. So in other words, if a municipality were to try to do something in opposition, or not opposition, but in opposite to this, then a court must give due deference to the FCC order. And the municipality must prove why that FCC order could not be followed or should not be followed. And in fact, there is a very large lawsuit against this brought by several municipalities around the country. The 10th Circuit denied a stay of this and allowed it to go into effect. So an FCC's orders are considered rule of the land. They also have the accompanying Code of Federal Regulations, which, in other words, the FCC orders are the persuasive interpretation of federal law. Then there's additionally, and the timeline for approvals and stuff like that went into the CFR. But the actual stuff about aesthetics, about what you can charge, those are in the FCC order because they differ everywhere. In other words, the FCC could not say to every city in the country, just as an example, you are limited to 45 feet, or the size of a small wireless system. The FCC, quite honestly, in my opinion, went way overboard on the size of a small wireless system, saying 28 cubic feet and exact dimensions and stuff. But basically, the FCC set a maximum for it. In addition, the FCC said stuff like the fees that a municipality can charge cannot exceed a certain level without persuasive argument. So the FCC order is the rule of the land, but it's not actually in the Code of Federal Regulations. And that goes back to the way the FCC is structured under federal law.
Thank you.
Council Patch, quickly.
I'll be real quick, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't here for the beginning of the meeting because I'm not on the committee, but
Don't worry, someone's sitting in your seat speaking for you.
I've been following it through correspondence. I got one quick question here. This vote is only for Ward 1 Councilor for Unity Ave, for 2 polls in Unity Ave, correct? One. Okay, in your ward though? Yes. Okay, well, a vote for this is not a vote for other polls that come in.
It is only one small cell node.
I didn't address
Not
you,
two.
sir.
Point
Yes.
of order, point of order.
State your point.
Thank you. I thought one was on Unity Ave and one was on State Road. I think there was 2. No, that's what I heard the last meeting. One was across the street, one was right on top of Dunkin' Donuts, and the other one was where the Colombian restaurant on Unity Ave was.
The issue here, we are proposing one small cell pole, which is at the corner of 116 State Road and 4 Unity Ave. From a prospect of what address to use, there was confusion. It's basically kind of sort of in front of both places. It is the same pole. One pole, one address. But from the standpoint of being in the right-of-way without a physical address, the assessors and us said, let's do it this way. So I apologize for the 2 addresses here, but it's one pole.
Unfortunately, it's more confusing, but it is on the application with the specific latitude, longitude location, but to the average person in the public, if you were to say, oh, we're putting something in at, I don't even know the numbers here, 47 ... 72 ... it doesn't mean anything.
Thank you. Councilor Rizzo, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I just have more of a comment than a question. I normally, historically, putting up an additional tower, was just part of doing business. And, in this day and age, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody without a cell phone. Everyone's got a cell phone. They need signal. Everyone gets frustrated when you don't have signal. We all know that. But I have to say, I was a little bit alarmed when I saw Lieutenant O'Hara's letter. As these signals become stronger over time, I don't know if it's 3G, 4G, 5G, and however many Gs will ultimately be 10, 15, 20 years from now, if there are actual health ramifications that come from this, then I think we do have cause as a municipal board, as a city council, to protect the public health of our residents. My wife used to work for Mass Electric, now National Grid, and she says, I would never live near those high power lines. That's documented, she said. People that live close to high voltage power lines are more at risk for health concerns. So, you know, these electromagnetic fields or whatever are being emitted from all these electronic devices that we're dealing with today, to me, are an issue. And so when people that don't live in the city, and no disrespect to you, you have to go to other municipalities and talk about these same things, but you come in here telling us that, you know, hey, look, this is what the FCC says, you guys got to do it. I mean, part of me is like, why do you need us then? Why, if this is all laid out with the FCC, what do you need to vote for? Just go do it. I mean, to be lectured to and talked to as if like our vote really is irrelevant because at the end of the day, you're going to get it in court anyway, it really doesn't matter. You know, but to me, as just one city councilor, that not only has to deal with the additional electronics that the community has to absorb, but we've got Resco down the street, and not to get into a debate over that because people have differing opinions, and I respect all sides, but in my opinion, you know, you've got toxins that are leaking into our environment, whether it's through the land or through the air, that people have genuine concerns about. And I'm not going to be one that's going to diminish their concerns, whether there's factual basis for it or not. It's things we can see. The same with these electronic devices that you're putting on our poles across the city. And so that letter, I have to say, by Lieutenant O'Hara, was a little troubling for me. And to be honest with you, because of things that I've learned and read over time, is troubling. So, I mean, I don't know the practicality of us voting it down. If it only delays it, but you're going to get it in court anyway, maybe that's one thing. But I will say, I think that more studies, more data, I think just has to be physically given to city councils if you're expecting across the state or across the country for people to keep voting for additional more and more devices that are going to be put in our community to make sure that the health and welfare of our citizens are protected. That's all I really have, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate it. It appears to me that there's not enough information for my colleagues to make an informed decision here. Now, I've gotten some documentation, but I have to say the only scientific documentation I got was from the proponent. I've gotten a lot of opinions, similar to the opinions I've gotten during Wheelabrator. High emotions, people are afraid, and they should be. But the people that we have to trust have told us they're safe. I'm not going to go down that road tonight. What I am going to do is keep this in committee. I can keep it in committee. I can do what I want. I want to keep it in committee, and that's what I'm going to do. And I know this gentleman's going to tell me that it's going to... I'm the zoning chairman. I'm keeping this in committee, and that's where that stands. And I would appreciate if anybody can come up with some scientific data, actual, factual data, not opinions. That's not factual data. All right, we're not going to debate it because I disagree. And so that's it.
Mr. Chairman,
that ends the zoning
Mr. Chairman,
subcommittee.
if I may, one question through you to the clerk.
Go right ahead.
What are our potential actions right now?
I would have to defer to our city solicitor regarding what happens after the shot clock runs out. I'm
So-
not sure.
We're on our 90th day?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That ends the zoning subcommittee for April 22nd, 2019.
Good evening. Calling to order the April 23rd,
22nd?
April 22nd Legislative Affairs Subcommittee meeting. Madam, we call the roll.
Roll call of the members of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Councilor Novoselsky?
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo? Here. Councilor Zambudo?
Here.
Here. Ex officio member Guanasso?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Keefe?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So this is the, we're going to hopefully bring this out of committee tonight, and I know that there's going to be some comments from fellow councilors that are in the committee and also some that are not, but some of the developers of the motion. We have in attendance Councilor Morabito, Councilor McKenna, and Councilor Janino, who helped put this ordinance together, as well as myself and Councilor Guanasso. If you'd like to speak on that, Councilor McKenna? Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that some people look at this as a feel-good motion, but we have 100 cities in our state that has just passed this ban on plastic bags. So being a coastal community, I think this is very important to the city of Revere that we look at it hard and see the impacts that it does to our oceans, our ocean and our city, and we should pass it. Thank you. And not wait for the state, because it could be 2 years from now. So I think it's necessary that we pass this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Morabito?
You know, I echo the same facts and concerns as I did before. This is something we must do as a city council. I think for the most part, citizens have the awareness to understand how toxic these plastic bags are. What goes into making a plastic bag? They say to create a 15 bags, it's equivalent to traveling a mile, using a mile of gas. So that's the amount of fossil fuel used just to create these bags. Call it a waste of energy or not, that's what I call it. 8 million tons of plastic waste is poured into the world's ocean. 8 million tons. That comes out to 70,000 microplastics that people are eating, consuming. That's about 100 bits of microplastic over the course of just one meal. They're saying because all these plastics, microplastics, are in the ocean, fish are eating them, and believe it or not, in one course, one meal, you're consuming 100 bits of plastic. So that speaks volumes. I think we need to take the initiative. Let's do it now. Let's pass this ban.
Thank you. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for addressing this fittingly enough on Earth Day. So I think this is very appropriate to address today. And in the spirit of that, I'm going to share with you a couple of facts from the biologicaldiversity.org. So we use over 100 billion plastic bags per year, which require 12 million barrels of oil to manufacture. On average, an American family takes home almost 1,500 plastic shopping bags a year, and up to 80% of these end up in the ocean. At least 267 different species have been affected by plastic pollution in the oceans, and 100,000 marine animals are killed by plastic bags annually. 1 in 3 leatherback sea turtles have been found with plastic bags in their stomachs, and plastic bags, on average, are used for 12 minutes. It takes 500 or more years for plastic bags to degrade in a landfill. But unfortunately, they don't break down completely, but instead photodegrade, becoming microplastics that absorb toxins and continue to pollute the environment. So these are just some facts, because we deal in facts in the City Council, and I want to share those with you today. And if anyone wants to look them up, I can share the link with you. But this is something that I believe in. It's something that Massachusetts believes in. A lot of communities are on board. We're a coastal community. This affects us. It goes into our drains. I really implore you to drive down any road in the city, look up in the trees, look down on the sides of the roads. You'll see them in fences. It's awful. And if we can make one step to improve our community, it's a big one. We can use reusable bags. I have them in my trunk. I have them in my room. I keep them everywhere. They're great. And you can use them over and over and over again. So I think it's great. I think we're making big steps. And I think this is very forward-thinking of the city of Revere, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the pleasure of reading the Boston Globe yesterday. It's probably the only section I like is the parade section, the only factual matter in the whole paper. Upon it, it placed a seal with a bottle of plastic water in its mouth. That's kind of sad commentary when this type of thing is occurring, and it's occurring more often than not. I'm a convert to this belief. I had to be persuaded, not very strongly, but after seeing so many efforts of abuse and how we were misusing our plastic goods and to the damage it was producing to the environment, I was totally convinced that this is not the right thing to do. And I noticed now that even my wife took me shopping Saturday, much to my happiness, and we went to Market Basket. And I see at the end of every aisle now, they have these bags, ice cold or warm, you can keep your goods in them. And so people are preparing for the event of this occurring. They know what the right thing is to do. And one of these big shops know that this is the way, the direction the city should be going in. So I'm all in favor of this, and I think that I applaud the members who worked hard to produce this to this body, and I will be voting favorably for it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I plan on supporting this tonight. Though I have to say, you know, like this is one issue I really, for whatever reason, I said I'm going to try to do some digging here and try to really, you know, see what the real story is. So, and of course, you go on the internet, you can get a million different stories on a million different websites. So, but one thing that I think has remained consistent, at least from what I can tell, or at least what I've determined, is that I think for me, the reason I'm going to support this is not so much as an environmental thing as a litter thing, you know, and you know, obviously what it does to our ocean and marine life. It can be a real problem as a coastal community. We see what it does on our beaches and so on. But, you know, you've got to, you know, those cotton reusable bags, you've got to use them at least 20,000 times to have the same environmental impact as one plastic bag. You've got to use it 20,000 times because of the CO2 emissions, because of the land usage, the water usage, the natural resources that are used in making some of these alternatives. You think about paper products. Well, where does paper come from? It comes from trees. So there's a lot of, there's a trade-off when you get rid of one, for another. For me, it comes down to plastics are just, they seem to me more dangerous, and they're certainly more unsightly, and they're not as biodegradable, obviously, which is the big argument for most proponents. But in terms of an overall environmental impact, I think the jury's still out on that, but I'm going to support it. Again, as I say, because of the danger it poses to our ocean and marine wildlife, to the unsightliness of it, and the way that it doesn't biodegrade just sitting on the sand, sitting on the sidewalk. But I think Council Guanasso used to have problems with a couple of establishments in his ward with scratch tickets you'd see on the ground. I mean, scratch tickets are a huge problem, litter problem, unsightly problem. But I think this is a very positive step, and so I want to applaud the makers of the motion, and I plan on supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listen, I'm not going to get into the argument that China has 95% of the plastic. We have 3%. I'm not going to make any argument about any of that stuff. And whether it's a feel-good motion or not, 100 cities and towns have passed it. And I understand that. But I do have a motion in tonight asking that we delay this until the state passes their legislation, which is a statewide ban. It goes into effect August. Now, if we can't wait a couple of months, I think we're just doing this to show off. I would even alter my motion that if the state doesn't enact this and put it in, then our motion would take effect. But I think it's a waste of time and a waste of paper to put an ordinance on the books that's going to be a statewide law. And it looks pretty good that it's going to be in effect August of 2019, if you talk to the people at the State House. So that's the only thing I would ask for. I am now on board with the rest of the council because I can't win. So I'm not saying that I agree with the science, but I am on board as far as the ban is concerned, but I would ask that you hold off until August 1st. And if the state doesn't pass it and enact their law, then you can go forward with it. I think that's a reasonable request.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. We will take your request, and we'll consider that, but I wanted to have Councilor Novoselsky speak, and then I'll save my comments for the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm like Councilor Guanasso, I'm a convert. At first, I really didn't look at the big picture, but looking at it, this is one small step for man, and we're only hitting a small portion of what's really needed. We are going just for plastic bags. There are, excuse me, there are many other items that are plastic. And as Councilor Morabito said, that plastics are being dumped in our oceans. And if you go out to the Atlantic Ocean, there's a black hole out there, the size of Texas, of all plastic goods, not produced by the United States, but by China. There's a large portion. It's not only wide, but it's deep. Now, I am going to go for this. I'm not convinced with my colleague, Councilor Zambudo, on delaying it because the first part of this has to be required by July 1st for large stores. And then it progresses to 10,000 square foot businesses and less than 10,000. But the main concern, July 1st, I don't want to wait another month. I think we should enact it. If the state does it, fine. All we've done is done our part and produced what we want to see. So I congratulate my colleagues, and I plan on voting for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor, and I didn't want to miss Councilor Patch.
Question of information, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Through you to the clerk. If we pass this tonight, and then the state passes their own law, does the state law supersede what we implement?
I read the proposed Senate bill, and it stated that if a city or town has already adopted an ordinance, that ordinance would become null and void as of August 1st.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarity, Madam Clerk. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not converted, but I believe in the idea. I really do. And I believe that I want to congratulate my colleagues for putting in a great motion. And believe me, I would like to do away with all plastic. But unfortunately, I also believe that unless our country does something to make these other countries do something, it ain't going to matter. We just put restrictions on the elderly and disability, and and they just go on and do whatever they want. So I am going to support this tonight, and I believe in the idea, and I hope for your sake that it really happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. After speaking to some of the other councils, it does seem as if the will is to keep it intact as is, and I know that it's ahead by 1 month, but I think it'll give the city just as much time to prepare and give businesses in the city time to get used to the new potential statewide ordinance. And of course, the statewide ordinance could be, it's a big if, and we would hope that the state would adopt this as well, but we're just going to control what we can in the city. So if everyone feels good about that, I'm going to ask to call the roll on this, Madam Clerk.
On an ordinance prohibiting disposable plastic bags, Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo.
No.
No. Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Keefe.
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And that concludes our I'm off tonight by a few months. April 27th, Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good evening, everyone. This is the April 22nd meeting of the City of Revere Appointments Subcommittee. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll of committee members?
Roll call. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito. Here. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Guanasso.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Nino. Here. Quorum is present.
We're also joined by Councilors Keefe, Morabito, Patch, Rizzo, and Zambudo. So thank you all for joining us. And I said Pat Keefe. Oh, okay. And Councilor McKenna, so thank you. We have several items before us this evening. I'll just go down the list, and as I read the name of you or your company, please come before the podium. The first is an appointment of James T. Lynch, Construction, as a licensed drain layer. Hello. Just state your name and address for the record.
Rocco Shelzy, my home address or company. 77 Lowell Junction Road, Andover, Mass.
Perfect. And this is a new appointment. Do any councilors have any questions of the applicant? Councilor Morabito.
Which cities do you currently have work in?
Cities? Working. Right now we're working in Marlborough, Hanover, Norwood, Burlington, and Peabody.
So you're well aware of the high demand of service, so.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sir, why are you coming to Revere for a drain license? Layers license.
We would like to expand our work into the various cities in the area, and Revere is one of them. We've done some work here in the past, and we'd like to continue to doing it, so.
Do you have any jobs lined up?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Any other committee or counselors? No? Seeing as there are none, all in favor? All opposed? This will be taken up favorably before the committee as a whole. There's no need to stay as it was recommended favorably. You can touch base with the clerk for all of your paperwork after the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
The next is a new appointment of Nathalie Kong to the Board of Health. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
Natalie, you can just, yeah, the H is silent.
Any counselors have any questions for Natalie? Counselor Keith.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mrs. Kong, thank you for coming here today. I'm curious, have you worked in the health-related field with other municipalities on boards of health?
No, not in like this type of role. I'm a physician at MGH.
Yep.
And haven't done anything in government yet, so.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Good. Well, I took the liberty of looking up your profile, and it seemed like you had plenty of awareness of what's going on in the industry, and obviously, and you're working in Revere, I believe at the MGH in Revere, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. It's nice to see you wanting to be part of our community.
Yeah.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Any other counselors have any other questions? Seeing as there are none, Doctor, thank you for coming before us. This will be recommended favorably to the committee of the whole. It'll be voted on in the full city council meeting, but there's no need to stay. The clerk will provide you with any paperwork following the meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next is a reappointment of Rapid Flow as a licensed drain layer.
Rapid Flow, my name is Anthony Silvestri, P.O. Box 499, Revere, Mass. is the company address.
Perfect. And this is a new appointment? Oh, reappointment. So any counselors have any questions for the reappointment? No? Seeing as there are none, this will be taken up favorably before the committee of the whole. Thank you. And again, you can see the clerk after for any paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next is a new appointment of Luigi Ciccone, Masonry Construction as a licensed drain layer.
How are you? Good.
So this is a new appointment. Do any counselors have any questions of Luigi? Counselor Novoselsky?
I'll ask the same question. Why do you want to work in Revere?
I think I've been working with you all my life.
And you've never been appointed as a drain layer?
No. I just want to do something new.
Any jobs lined up?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Counselor Zambudo, then Counselor Keith.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This gentleman is probably one of the premier masonry contractors in the state, at least. And he's an exemplary person. I give it my full endorsement. If he wants to do some drain work, I'm sure it'll be impeccable work as he does all his work. So I support him wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I also wanted to echo Councilor Zambudo's comments. Mr. Ciccone, pardon me if I'm saying it incorrectly, all the work that I've seen him, witnessed him do, and friends that he's done has been impeccable, meticulous work, and I know that he stands behind everything he does, so I think we'll be happy to have him representing the city in more services. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I normally don't speak during an appointments committee, subcommittee meeting, but it was just interesting for me to hear that this is his first time being an applicant. I don't remember you ever not being in Revere, so I didn't realize that you didn't have a drain layers license, but you've been working around here forever, and you know, it's great when you know the person that you're appointing because you know the reputation of them, or you know, when you actually know the person, you've worked with them. You know, we've got a great, even though you've never done any drain laying work, your reputation will carry you through, and I wholeheartedly support you, Luigi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other counselors? Counselor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, all I recommend is, my old story is looking at the insurance policies. You have to bring all your insurance up to date because a lot of these things are,
I did already.
okay, well,
It should be all in there.
no, I see Western Surety Company from 2018. And your automobile liability expires 5/7/19, and your general liability expires 8/31. So if you have updated ones, would you present them to the clerk when you pick up your license?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Okay.
I thought I don't know what's going on about, I thought they were all up to date.
Yeah, this is just what I'm looking at, so.
No, that's fine. I mean, I have no problem. Yes, it's all up to date anyway, so I'll bring it in.
Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
counselors? All right, I echo some of the comments that my colleagues made. You're a first-class company, and we're happy to have you as a drain layer in addition to the other services you provide for the city, so thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you.
This will be taken up favorably. There's no need to stay. You can touch base with the clerk after the meeting. The next item on our agenda is a reappointment of J&A Contracting Services, Inc. as a licensed drain layer. I spoke with Mr. Trevana last week. He is away with his family for Easter this week, and I did speak with him over the phone and reviewed any questions that I had with him. He said he'd be more than happy to come before another meeting, but after speaking with him since the reappointment, I felt comfortable just sharing with you that I spoke with him. So if any counselors have any questions or concerns, we can hold him, but I did, again, speak with him, and I don't see any concern. So anybody? This will be taken up favorably. Thank you. The next is an appointment of D&M Civil, Inc. as a licensed drain layer. Anyone here from D&M?
Chairwoman, their letter came back, however, they were also missing, the bond was only for $5,000 in the application, it's a $10,000 requirement.
All right, so we will hold D&M in committee. The next is reappointment of Nino Construction. Anyone here from Nino?
John Pascuccio, 76 Oakville Street, Lynn, Mass.
Any counselors have any questions? No? Seeing as there are none, this is a reappointment. This will be taken up favorably before the committee of the whole this evening. You can touch base with the clerk after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is a reappointment of Diane Colella as the election commissioner. Ms. Colella.
Thank you very much. Diane Colella, Election Commissioner.
Thank you for coming before us this evening.
Thank you.
I'm sure all of my colleagues have positive comments, so I'm going to start at this end and work our way down. Councilor Keefe.
Sure, thank you. It's tough because I know the constant struggles that she has to go through in each year. It's not an easy position as election commissioner of any town, certainly not Revere, but I think Ms. Colella does her job to the highest of abilities and with the most professionalism. It's been a pleasure, working with her as a resident, and she holds her job and she holds her responsibilities to the highest and most professional. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Keefe.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, sorry. I just want to say, Diane, you're a great asset to the city, and whenever I have a problem or I have a question, you're always there to answer it, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna.
Councilor Morbido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. I'm very pleased with you and in the position you're at. You have a very busy year coming up.
I do.
So just stay calm and just get through it. But I'm very happy that we're able to push my motion through of getting new voting machines.
Thank you.
I know you work diligently with the mayor pushing that and helping my motion come to fruition. So thank you. I'm in favor of this.
Thank you for your support.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Diane and I have been together since the first day she came into the city, and a lot of times we haven't been on the same road. But I can honestly say that you have done a good job.
Thank you, sir.
You put your heart into it, and I can't imagine her ever being calm. She, when something goes wrong, she gets right in the car with the police officer and goes right to the precinct to straighten it out. And
Thank you,
I
Matt.
appreciate that, and I
Thank
think
you,
a lot
sir.
of other people do too, because there are strange things that go on.
Yes.
You know, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your good work, your hard work, and your intensity that you put into it, and trying to get the right answer, not just flipping it off, you know, so thank you.
Ira.
And
I really appreciate that.
you have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Patch.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Diane, over the years, as you know, this is it for me, so I gladly support you.
Thank you, sir.
Over the years, I believe you always act professional, and that we grew as friends, and the best of luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Same to you. I appreciate your help.
Council President Guanasso, and thank you for letting me go over into your time a little bit.
I'm watching that clock, Madam Chairperson. Diane, I certainly know one thing for sure. You've given the city of Revere the proper results when it comes to Ward 3, and I really appreciate that. Every single time, you've done the right thing by selecting the right person, and the results that you forwarded to us was correct.
Thank you, sir.
But on another note, I applaud you for the work that you put up with in the day-to-day activity that you have in a very sensitive position, dealing with candidates, elected officials, and it's a tedious task, and you do the job well. And so we appreciate your services.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
I really
Diane.
appreciate that.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that's still politically correct, isn't it, to call you chairman? I think it is. No, I think both are acceptable. I'll have to defer to the woman on this. It's not? It is. Okay. I think you have probably the toughest job of anybody in City Hall. You have to put up with, and some of us for an awful long time you've had to put up with. And there's nothing tougher to deal with than candidates and elected officials, and especially elected officials, I think. We tend to get our ire up over the smallest things, and you handle it very well and very professionally.
Thank you, sir.
And you know I mean that sincerely, because I don't lie. And we've had our differences now and then. We've always worked them out because, you know, reasonable people can disagree at times, but we don't have to be disagreeable. But I honor your service to the city because it's not an easy job, and I thank you for wanting to continue at it.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you. I'd just like to say that I couldn't do it without the support of the Board of Election Commissioners, Bob Screamer, Elizabeth Dixon, and John Camerata, as well as my office staff, Caitlin Welsh, Jennifer Diaz, and Lisa Costanzo. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Diane. And I know all my colleagues have made comments, so I will briefly. That just shows your character of how you share that with your team. And you're, without a doubt, one of the most dedicated workers in City Hall and the most responsive. If any of us have an issue, within hours or minutes, we get a call, we get an email, you're on top of everything. And as my colleagues mentioned, it's not an easy job. Politics in Revere is a little crazy, but you manage it so well, and thank you for that. So
thank you very much.
I think it's safe to say this is favorable, so you can touch base with the clerk after the meeting, and there's no need to stay for the meeting as a whole.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is a reappointment of Henry Mancini to the Revere Housing Authority.
Henry Mancini, 69 Hutchinson Street.
Thank you, Henry. Any councilors have any questions? Councilor Guanasso.
Madam President, Henry's been one heck of a nice guy in all the years I've known him. I met with him on several occasions to discuss the ongoings of the Revere Housing Authority. He's very dedicated. He knows what he's talking about. He serves the community well. And the membership of the Housing Authority well represented by Henry's presence there. He's informative at meetings, and he's just a pleasure to work with. And I think that he looks the same as we met how many years ago? God, you're doing the right thing. So whatever it is, Henry, keep it up.
Thank you so much.
And I certainly be a pleasure to vote for you tonight.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Henry, I was proud to appoint you back when I was mayor, and I'm going to be proud to be part of the people who reappoint you here tonight. So you do a great job. You're very approachable. You take your job very seriously, and you're a good representative for our community. So I'm proud to support you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
nice.
Madam Chairman.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to say that Henry was one of Mayor Rizzo's great appointments. He is someone who takes his job very seriously, works very hard at it, cares about what goes on in the Housing Authority, and we couldn't ask for a better representative. So I'll be thrilled to vote for him tonight. Thank you.
Councilor.
That's awful
Councilor
nice.
Morabito.
Thank you. Just want to say you have a long-standing history in our city. Not only history speaks volumes. Just being the long-standing resident and your decisions on the housing authority. So this is a reappointment, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you all very much, very much.
Thank you. Any other councilors? I'll echo the comments that my colleagues made, Henry. Thank you for all that you do for our city. This will be taken up favorably before the council as a whole. There's no need to stay, but you can touch base with the clerk following the meeting to get the paperwork.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry. Last but not least, reappointment of J. Marchese and Son as a licensed drain layer.
Scott Karpinski, J. Marchese and Sons, 69 Norman Street, Everett, Mass.
Any councilors? This is a reappointment. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, just, oh, we're in public. I've been watching Marchese work all over the city of Revere, and I can honestly say that they do great sidewalks, they do great curb work, and I see Bobby and all the boys all over my neighborhood, and they're doing a good job, and I would definitely recommend them, and I will vote for them tonight.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you. I've known Scott longer than I care to admit, but he's truly a professional. I've known him when I worked years ago in the Highway Department, and known him for the work he's done up here. And I'm just happy he's still with Marchese, because we use Marchese a lot here in the city. And I'm thrilled to vote for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? This will be taken up favorably before the committee of the whole. There's no need to stay, but you can touch base with the clerk following the meeting to get any paperwork to complete the reappointment.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the appointments for this evening, so they will all be taken up favorably with the exception of 19076. DNM will stay in committee. Thank you all.
Good evening, and welcome to the Revere City Council meeting of April 22nd, 2019. Please join the Revere City Council in the salute to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, Revere City Council has requested all cell phones are shut off. Roll call of the members. Councilor Nino. Here. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch.
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers. Is absent. Councilor Rizzo. Here. Councilor Rotundo. Is absent. Councilor Zambudo.
Here.
Here. And Council President Guanasso.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Madam Clerk, prior to the start of this evening's meeting, again, I'm going to have to offer out well wishes to two of our colleagues who are at home recuperating Councilor Powers and Councilor Rotundo are both recuperating from illnesses, and we wish them a speedy recovery. We'd love to see them back in this chamber as soon as possible. Madam Clerk, I would like to offer out at this particular time a suspension of rules in order to take up the zoning subcommittee report offered out by Councilor Chairman Tony Zambudo. Is there a motion on the floor to suspend rules? All in favor, all opposed? So ordered. Rules are suspended. Madam Clerk, the zoning subcommittee met earlier this evening, and before it had an issue in reference to a satellite location for G5. And there was much conversation that went on, and during the conversation, different things were said, and different things met, unfortunately, the social media, a place to which none of this business really belongs. This is serious business. People should offer their opinions, and if they have a valid reason to being here, they should come up here and display it when we have these public hearings. Number one, we have a public hearing in place, and then the chair, being myself, refers it to a subcommittee. During that subcommittee, everybody has the opportunity to discuss this in detail. There's no time limit. Just express your thoughts and go over in an informal manner. And so some of these things occurred. The chair this evening, within his provisions, voted no action on a particular matter. But I see before us, very obvious, many members of the Revere Fire Department. One of the members of the Revere Fire Department, Lieutenant O'Hara, was clearly spelled out on social media. In the eyes of the chair of this council, the president of this council, I think he has every right in the world to come up and address the city council and the city of Revere because of what occurred in social media. We'd like once and for all to put this final business of this activity to rest. But it's unfairness that I ask this council if they would allow me to allow Lieutenant O'Hara to come before us and give us a presentation and his concerns to the conversation that took place on social media. Is it the wish of the council that we go forward? Thank you. Lieutenant O'Hara, please hit the button.
I'm Lieutenant O'Hara, Revere Fire Department, also the president of Local 926, Revere Firefighters Association. There's two separate issues here that we have to speak about. One is the cell phone tower on the station, which I do represent 100 members of Local 926 and their families. And also, I got family in the city of Revere. On the other issue with the 5G towers going up on telephone poles, I spoke last month and gave my thought on that. Now, on the social media, now I have my own personal page, and we all use social media. Every single one in here uses it. And I do have a right to express my opinion on my personal page. Now, if you go to our union social media page, you'll see that I updated on the cell phone tower on the station. So we got two separate issues here we're talking about. You may be able to relate it down the road, but I've been fighting the battle on the tower since August, and we've taken a very good road on that. Now, these poles is another separate issue, and it is a concern. And tonight, I did get a report straight from the top, the International Association of Firefighters, that provides a study that was done where they had it in California, and there were 6 firefighters tested in this study by doctors, and one of them was forced to retire because of the non-thermal radiation coming from the tower. Now, on those towers, on the poles, and as you see in the last council meeting when I spoke here, Mr. George from Intel, is that it? Intel? Xtel? He did mention that, in the council, if you watch the zoning subcommittee, that the towers, we don't like to use the word 5G, it doesn't sound safe. Or I wouldn't advise you to go up on top of the pole with the tower on top of the telephone pole and hang around there. Well, as a firefighter in this city, I don't know if you guys realize that last month we did have a fire that we fought for 10 hours down on Thornton Street, and I was on the top of the ladder truck, and 15 feet from that ladder truck was the top of a telephone pole. So you're gonna tell me that if I'm not supposed to be hanging around on it? Well, I was on the top of that stick, and I was on there for multiple hours, along with 2 other members. So that's my concern. If he's telling me in the meeting that it's not safe to hang around, and they're putting it on top of poles, if I have a fire in this city, I'm gonna be on top of the ladder truck, right around that pole. That's a concern. And I know the FCC does give them the power to put it up. I'm not challenging that. I can't. They have that right. But I'm challenging, is it safe? And I asked them last meeting if it was safe. And he got back up there and he never mentioned a word. And that's the issues we're having. If we start now and we start throwing up on these poles, coming down further down the road, you know, it could be bad news. There isn't enough scientific evidence out there right now that supports this because they're not up anywhere. They're just slowly going up. It's just, you could put this in the same thing with asbestos, smoking. They said smoking was fine. 40 years down the road, what do we got now? Everybody's getting cancer because of cigarettes. We're trying to slow this process because there needs to be enough proof that protects us. And that's what I'm standing here for, is for protection. And again, the FCC does give them the power. We know that. And again, they came here and they're looking for a yes or no. I'm advising the councils to say no. They can still throw it up, but why do they need it? Maybe to help protect them down the road, who knows? But that's why I'm here for that. There's 2 separate issues now. And we're gonna discuss the tower probably in a few more minutes. But on the cell phone towers, on telephone poles, in neighborhood, that gives periodic pulse of radiation throughout the day, you're gonna tell me that sounds all right? To me, it doesn't. And that's why I just want to clear that information up for you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I appreciate
Okay.
your comments. In terms of the meeting, it was voted no action taken by the subcommittee. But that does not rule that this committee of the whole can take a vote on that. So we first asked, we asked the chairman of zoning, what's his desire? Mr. Chairman.
Point of order.
State your point.
I disagree with your premise. That it's not voted out of committee, it's not taken up by the council as a whole.
Mr. President, may I suggest something?
Councilor Rotundo.
We can put a motion on the floor right now to address it, therefore maneuvering around the parliamentary issue that faces us. And I would suggest whatever you want to put on the floor, that we do so utilizing a motion to address this very issue. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor, City Clerk, a ruling. Zambudo, in terms of Councilor Zambudo?
Exactly what Councilor Rotundo just said. The city council could take a vote to remove it from committee.
So,
Mr. President, I make a motion to remove from committee, please.
One at a time, please. So that's
You can take the committee. You hear me?
what's that?
Is that a threat?
What do you mean you can take the committee?
You can take the committee. Is that a threat, Mr. Zambudo?
Point of order.
No.
Give you resignation? That's what you just said. No.
Point of order.
Gentlemen.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Hey, excuse me, Counselor. Let us discuss this professionally, not, I just asked a question. So come back to your seat and, all right, that's an opinion, and you can offer out your opinion. But, and so, I absolutely did, and I did a good choice in doing it. So the other avenue, and we did. And I sat there in the committee, and I didn't make any reference either way. So I allowed you to chair, and I did that. Now, it's the provision of the city council of the whole, whether they offer out an oral motion or not. Can't be done. Okay, so the question's over.
Mr. President,
Councilor Rotundo.
As was reverberated by the clerk, a motion can be made in order to address the issue that is currently in committee, but it cannot be the same exact thing.
Okay. So the question is removed. A non-vote was taken by the zoning subcommittee. The unfortunate part about it is it's going to go into agreement anyway because of the rules of the FCC and all its wisdom that they possess. Why they even allow it to come before a city when we're stuck with, we can't say no, all we have to do is say yes. That's the unfortunate part for our community. But the important part of what's taking place here tonight is the members of our community know that there are people out there, councilors and firemen alike, who are vying to protect their interests. And I applaud that effort because we knew this was going to happen anyway. FCC was going to overrule. They were going to get their wish. And so we, as city councilors, more than appreciate what you have done for us, Mr. O'Hara, Lieutenant O'Hara. You have done an admirable job for your community. And you expressed it in the terms that you're up there fighting a fire. Your life's in danger to begin with, to put another hazard there that really we want to remove. Hopefully, within the wisdom of our country, we will get some resolution of this in the future. But right now, theoretically, our hands are tied. And so we all agree to that. And so I just don't understand in the future, why should we even entertain any of these licenses? Because we have no say in saying no. We can't even put a set of conditions on it. No, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, and I think. You gotta stand together. You gotta stand together. Thank you, Lieutenant, and I appreciate all you've done, and I admire your membership that's come up to back you up, accompanied by your chief, and I think it's a tribute to all of you, and I really mean that, and this council means that. So we appreciate what you've done, and thank you. It was an effort needed to be taken, and now the community knows how their fire department feels about them and how their city council feels about them, because we're really rooting for them, even though our hands are tied. Councilor Rotundo.
I hate to be a little bit late to this particular issue, one, because of being sick, and more importantly, having spoken to the chairman and knowing Lieutenant O'Hara. You know, today the science might not exactly show 100% where this is, but having been a nurse for well over 20 years, what I can tell you is things that they might not know a causation for today, in 5 to 10 years, they will know. And
we've been discussing that in subcommittee for months. 100%. Councilor, we've been discussing that for months, and we all appreciate that. This conversation is closed, and I appreciate your attendance. Madam Clerk? Back to the regular order of business. So moved.
Calendar item number 2, approval of the journal of the regular meeting of April 8th, 2019.
So move.
All in favor? Opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 3, public hearings. Hearing called as ordered on the revocation of the following Chapter 148 licenses, number 606 and number 629.
We're going to call proponents and opponents on this particular matter, but this is simply a housekeeping matter, edification of the council and those in attendance. This proponents. Any proponents in reference to this public hearing? Seeing and hearing none, close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone in opposition? Hearing and seeing none. Any city councilors? And this is, shall the city council revoke Chapter 148 licenses 606, 629 for reasons slated during the public hearings. And this is just, again, it's housekeeping. It's no a matter that just had to be corrected. All in favor? All opposed? On a roll call. Roll call.
On the revocation of the Chapter 148 licenses as reported, Councilor Nino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes?
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? Yes. Councilor Zambuto is absent. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the Chapter 148 licenses have been revoked. Calendar item number 4, hearing called as ordered on an ordinance further amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere relative to towers and telecommunications facilities on municipal buildings.
Any proponents? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, councilors. Chief Bright, Revere Fire Chief, 400 Broadway. If I get this correct, I'm here to, this is to amend the current city ordinance?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to speak in favor of that amendment, please. I did, I have a paper here I'd like to submit. I don't have enough copies for everybody.
Clerk?
But a few copies. Yes. And going through the city ordinance, I'm asking that we amend the section for putting this cell equipment on the publicly used structures. I'm asking that we delete the current section that's listed here. And I was a little bit surprised, I guess, reading the ordinance, the extent of it. I mean, we've been going through this recently with the cell equipment being removed from the central fire station that's been up there for about 10 years. But the current language allows this type of technology to be placed on all public buildings, fire stations, police stations, libraries, community centers, civic centers, utility structures, elevated roadways, bridges, flagpoles, schools, hospitals, light poles, and churches.
Chief, not to interrupt, but we have an ordinance, what we have drafted, that's going to attend to all that, and the city clerk could read it to us.
I'd love to.
So-
Okay.
So you'll hear
Jump the gun on that?
exactly what we have in mind. And what I would also, because I'm going to, once the proponents and opponents have been heard on this particular issue, I'm going to refer it to the zoning subcommittee. And if you wish, you could assign one of your members to come to our subcommittee and help us on this ordinance and draft the best possible ordinance we can come forward for our city. If you would do that, that would be great.
Do that, certainly can.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinances as we're going to...
I don't have a copy of that, no. So in Section D, as you mentioned, Chief, towers and communications facilities will be amended by deleting the words police, fire stations, libraries, community centers, civic centers, flagpoles, and schools. There's going to be a new section, subsection D3, prohibited location sites, any municipal building, including but not limited to City Hall and its annex office locations, police and fire stations, libraries, schools, civic centers, and community centers. If I could add to, I would like to add all the other elements to exclude that were in the original ordinance, allowing all those other mentions in there. You know, churches, flagpoles, hospitals,
Okay,
roadways.
this is the conversation we can have in the subcommittee. We can add, put that and give it to one of your members, have him come, or he or she come to our subcommittee.
I'll try to be available for that myself.
I'll ask the chair when he's going to have a subcommittee meeting on it when we refer this, but I have to have the public hearing first.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
President.
other proponents, anyone want to speak in favor? Any proponents? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing and seeing none. Any city councilors, knowing that this is going to the zoning subcommittee?
Mr. President, through you,
Marabito.
through you to the chief, can I just have him forward over to the chairman his recommendations? This way they already have it on hand before the subcommittee?
Yeah, I asked him to do that. Yes, sir. Councilwoman Jessica Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Keefe and I put this motion in, and it's something that I feel strongly about, and I just want to thank the chief and the fire department for their support on this. In the years I've been on the council, it's been very few times that the fire department has come up on an issue, and it's their job to protect our community and the safety of our residents. So for them to be willing to come up and speak on something, it shows that we should really take a listen. So thank you, and I'll speak more on this in committee.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President. As you can see tonight, there's some passionate Revere City firefighters and plenty of passionate Revere employees. But this motion that Councilor Janino and I put together really just tries to help protect the firemen and employees of the city so that they don't have to endure this during their workday. I mean, there's already enough danger in their environment and obviously in their the career that they have chosen, we should not be adding any more. So we'll speak more in subcommittee, but I appreciate you taking this forth tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zambudo.
Obviously, this is going in my committee, and we'll have that right after the public hearing, but I commend my colleagues for putting this motion in. I certainly support the firefighters, and anybody, any city worker should not be threatened. Whether, you know, these 5G things are a problem, we don't know they are for sure, but if I'm going to argue about a firefighter being up next to it on the pole fighting a fire, I'd have to be out of my mind to not support the firefighter. So I commend my colleagues for drafting this, and let's hope we go forward with it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
Not particular with the issue going into the subcommittee. I think no matter what we do at the end of our ordinance, and I'm suggesting this to the chair and the city as a whole, we send a letter to our federal delegation, and we have them lobby the FCC. I mean, this is not something that we can actually change. We need to have it at the regulatory level, and so we need to do it this way. And if it just a little old city of Revere does it, then maybe some other cities will do it. And I think that's, you know, closer to a solution other than us, you know, dealing with it at a rudimentary level here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rizzo.
Just very briefly, Mr. President, you know, I'm prepared to vote no on this whenever, if it comes out tonight, comes out next week, whenever it is, I'm prepared to vote no. The sad part is the FCC is going to have oversight of this, and our vote is truly meaningless. So I think that we should at least start a discussion on a congressional level where they can actually have some impact with the FCC. Maybe we send a letter to our congressional delegation telling them about the potential dangers that we're starting to hear about and relay the fears that we have as a community so they can start to get proactive, because we can't dictate to the FCC what to do, but our congressional delegation can get that conversation started. So I'm hopeful that maybe, you know, with the help of the City Council and the support of the City Council, that we can get our federal delegation involved with the FCC so that we do actually have some oversight going forward as a community.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing? Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I love this package. But I know when we go into this committee, I know the site plan review put some recommendations together. I would hope we can include those recommendations in the ordinance somehow.
Absolutely.
So and also I would like to get a written confirmation letter from the owner of the pole, whether it be Verizon or National Grid, that it is a safe pole and that it's been inspected and it can handle another piece of equipment.
Good point. Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Lieutenant.
Regarding the FCC issues with on firefighters, basically the International Association of Firefighters have already moved forward, went to the FCC and gave their thought on things. There's a study being done. I believe it's Washington State University, the IFF is the one who went through them, and they're going to come up and they're already fighting the battle. But you got to understand, we are a little fish in a big pond. These companies have multi-millions of dollars. And, you know, sometimes when you go to the FCC, it's, you know, it's getting the right politician to go in there, saying the right things, making the right donation, without even doing any scientific evidence. You know, it's a shady business. And, you know, and that's what we're up against. So just to let you know, we already moved forward. The International Association of Firefighters have moved forward with information and concerns. Okay?
Lieutenant, the information you have, would you be kind enough to forward that over to the subcommittee? And
so the information I have is regarding the cell tower and antennas on poles. It was a study done by the International Association of Firefighters, and there were issues raised with sleeping habits, headaches, cancer.
Okay, give us that information.
Yeah, and we gave that. I gave that to Councilor Keefe and Councilor McKinnon.
Okay, so
all right?
we have it in hand.
Yes, it's a study that was done. It's not a personal opinion. It was a study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you again for your service. That concludes this. It's going over to zoning subcommittee. Chairman Zambudo. Madam Clerk?
Calendar item number 5, hearing called is ordered on the petition of Bernard Schramm, trustee of the 257 Washington Avenue Realty Trust, for the purpose of considering the discontinuance and abandonment of a certain portion of Lincoln Street as illustrated on the petitioner's plan.
Proponents, anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening, councilors. Corey Rhodes with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue in Revere. We represent the petitioner Bernard Schramm, trustee related to this small portion of Lincoln Street that was originally laid out prior to the construction of Route 1 and is actually had Lincoln Street extending all the way to Washington Avenue versus where it terminates now, right at Amasa Street. My client owns property on both sides of this small, unconstructed portion of Lincoln Street, and he has asked us to look into the title for the property, getting older, thinking about selling, and wanting to make the best property possible. There's been some issues related to this way, this unconstructed way. That has brought this petition tonight asking for a discontinuance and termination of this way. There was some new information last week, though, that we found out from inspectional services and the city planner that there is actually an 8-inch water main under the way, and we are currently trying to have a discussion with the city engineer to provide an easement to the city so that can always remain and be repaired and worked on by the city as needed. But that would also allow this title issue to be cleared up for my client. So trying to find that solution and asking right now that it would, if the council would be good enough to put this matter in committee, we would be like to bring it back with an agreement with the city engineer so that this could be terminated and also maintain the city's rights.
Thank you, Council. Any other proponents? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none, close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone in opposition? And we have received a letter from the city engineer, Nick Rystrom, that he has to submit his discontinuance required by him. So, Madam Clerk?
Dear Honorable City Council, I apologize for not being able to appear before you in person. I have received a request for an abandonment of a portion of the city right-of-way on Lincoln Street from Washington Avenue to the MassDOT Route 1 corridor. A review of the request has shown the existence of city water infrastructure within the length of Lincoln Street in question. As a result, I cannot approve nor do I recommend that the city abandon this land. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Regards, the city engineer.
I'll refer this over to the zoning subcommittee chaired by Councilor Zambuto. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Corey, I don't see any list for residents getting notified of this.
There actually aren't any. My client is on both sides of the property. This way connects to no other owners.
Okay, I haven't got any, obviously, it's been publicized in the newspapers.
3 times.
3 times. Okay,
Refer to
go
zoning
subcommittee.
subcommittee. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much.
Calendar item number 6, hearing called is ordered on the special permit application of Mobility LLC, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to install a small cell antenna and associated equipment on an existing utility pole number VZ3332 on Pleasant Street near the intersection of Broadway.
Any proponents? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, Honorable Council. My name is Lyle Bookbinder. My name is Lyle Bookbinder. I'm here to represent Mobility for an application for a single small cell nearest 23 Pleasant Street, abutting this building, 281 Broadway. I've put together an application for a special permit to install the single location. I provided both licensure from National Grid as well as Verizon. The make-ready work was completed, showing that it is suitable to hold this equipment, and we are licensed and ready to go on that pole. Mobility has also come into an agreement with the council to put up small cell equipment throughout the city, and want to remind the council on that as well. With the submission, I provided a EME study, and it shows that we are compliant for all public safety and there is no adverse effect to any public. And there is also no added utilities such as water or sewer, so there's no adverse effect to any discharge. I respectfully request permission to attach to this pole, as we do have licensure and the FCC guides us to attach these. The location has been cited properly and engineered. It's stamped and meets all NEC and all local, state, federal guidelines. And we will also meet any local permitting requirements necessary and DPW or local traffic engineering, et cetera, to ensure that it's a safe build and there's no adverse effect to the public or traffic.
Thank you.
And do you have any questions regarding
Not
this
at this
installation?
particular time. Is there any other proponents interested in speaking? Proponents? Anyone in speaking in opposition? Any opponents? Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Is it on?
It's on.
My name is Elizabeth Roper, 7 Cheever Street, Revere. I have received this notice of being an abutter. I went across the street from where I live, and the same pole number that's listed here is on the pole across from me on Cheever Street. And after hearing the firemen and seeing the council is questioning these cells, I am in opposition.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other people wishing to speak in opposition? Again, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Bob Alessi, 30 Pleasant Street, Revere. What I've heard this evening about the various studies that have been done, I don't know what the particulars are, and I don't know what the long-term effects will be. Therefore, I do not recommend that this go forward.
Thank you. Any other opponents wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. City Councilors, Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name. Would you mind going to the podium?
Yes, Mr. Bookbinder.
Thank you, Mr. Bookbinder. Since you said that you had an EME study, can you tell me what the predictive density is at 1 foot? And what the radio frequency emission is at that point? And under what conditions was it done? And is it a study in general, or was it a radio frequency study?
It's a radio frequency study, the frequency of the millihertz.
Was it done from that pole?
It was done for that height and that equipment.
At that pole,
on
that exact pole?
location, yes.
Sure, could you tell me what the density is?
And,
is it greater than 86?
no, let me get you the exact number. The power density is 0.040, 0.8% of the FCC occupational controlled exposure limit.
At how many feet?
And that is at 6 feet above the ground.
And what's the distance? Because there's a control distance, so for every foot you decrease your emissions.
At 6 feet, which
That's
is...
only height. That
Yeah,
that doesn't give a breadth of width, which is what needs to be studied. The height density is non-consequential. I could care less about it. It's going to the air. I want to know what's going to happen to the people.
But it would be from height above from 6 feet.
Yeah.
It is 0.8.
There are people that are 6 feet tall.
It is 0.8, which means there are 92% less in capacity for a safety,
You're
correct?
measuring the density up. I want to know what the width is. That's also a predictive part of a study.
It would go downwards.
If you're going across, do you have that number?
At what height I can get you that number for the subcommittee meeting?
Right
now,
I think we're
fully
talking past
compliant.
each other. I'll look at the study myself.
Yeah, it's fully compliant. There's 0.8% which means there's 92% remaining.
Yeah, I'll look at the study.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my ward again, and this is densely populated. You're going to be putting it on the corner of Pleasant Street and Broadway. There are multiple houses there, businesses, people that work there. Could you tell me if, I know the last antenna was a 5G. Could you tell me the name of this antenna? Is it a 4G, 5G? Is that how you list your antennas?
So right now, we are currently in 4G in most of the United States, up to 4G. We are trying to get to 5G by increasing the capacity and coverage in the significant gap. So currently, right now, there's a significant gap in coverage and capacity in which the FCC ensures that we must comply to fill. These are low-powered antennas. It's showing that there's under 400 watts of maximum power when it's on, and there's only 20 watts from the actual antenna itself. They are very low powered. They are not the macro. They are not what you see.
They don't have microwave radiation coming out of them?
It is non-ionizing radiation. It is, the FCC guides us to...
I understand the FCC, but there's still radiation coming in.
It's non-ionizing.
When I go for a mammogram, okay, they cover me from here down. But that mammogram sputes out radiation all over the body. They only cover me from here down, but it goes in your neck, it goes in your thyroid, it goes everywhere. But they don't tell women that, okay? Only a couple of doctors will tell you that, but they don't tell you that because they don't have enough evidence. I really believe that if there was a study done from 2005 to 13 years ago about the 1G, the 2G, the 3G, whatever they are, that's the data that they had on that showed what kind of radiation they had. Maybe it was minimal. But these are brand new antennas, and there's really no data. It's like Fire Chief O'Hara said, Lieutenant O'Hara said, smoking, they didn't know. Now people are vaping. They don't know what's going to happen with people. Maybe in 3 years from now, they'll find out that vaping causes cancer. They have no data on it. No data. I really do believe that you and I don't have enough data to put forth. I'm totally against this because I'm going to protect my residents. And let me tell you something. If I say yes tonight to you, say no to him, it's not fair, all right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say no because in 5 years from now, I have to live with myself if they find all these antennas have cancer and people are starting to get cancer. And I want to go to sleep at night and I want to live with myself. So I'm totally against this until you can come up with specific proof. And I don't care about the FCC. I care about my constituents. I care about my residents. Sir, thank you.
I understand your compassion.
This is going to go to zoning subcommittee.
Okay.
You can answer all questions of the zoning subcommittee.
Ask.
Going to zoning subcommittee. Thank you, sir. I'm asking for a suspension of rules so we can take up department heads who have been patiently waiting. I'm asking that we take up calendar item number 19. All in favor, all opposed, so ordered. Calendar item number 19.
Communication from the city auditor relative to the capital improvement stabilization fund appropriations.
Mr. Visay.
Good evening, Richard Viscay, City Auditor, 281 Broadway. We submitted before you the first part of what will be the updated CIP for fiscal year 2020. These would be all pay-as-you-go items, so these are appropriations requested from the existing capital improvement stabilization account. Here to answer any questions that there are any. I suspect it would go to committee, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Any councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, looking at all these items that are being requested, knowing what's going on in the city and the different departments, these are all legitimate items. I did have a question on the parking vehicles, whether or not we're using those electric ones, or if we're going back to gasoline or some other type, if you know.
One of the vehicles would be for meter control, and that would be an electric vehicle again. And then one of the vehicles we're requesting is a small pickup truck. That would be more for maintenance and, moving meters and doing some of the maintenance aspect of it. So it'd be one electric vehicle and one small pickup truck.
And the only reason I pick on it, because, knowing the people that work there, I get numerous complaints about the condition of the electric vehicles. I know we're looking to be environmental friendly, but we're not being quality of work life friendly to our employees.
My understanding is they've come a long way with regard to heat and defrosting. I guess they're a little tough in the winter, but since we have the docking stations, we were looking to, not that typical, that particular make and model of the electric vehicle, but different make and model, but still stay with the electric version.
Because I know even the summertime, they can't even use an air conditioner
Right,
before
yeah.
it goes 2 hours and breaks down.
Understood, yes.
So, I would carefully look at that, but, all the other items are, I think, are legitimate. If the chairman's going to send it to Ways and Means, fine, but I know they're all legitimate, and it's looking like, we have some money to play with, and why not take care of our departments now and, make them a better quality of work life. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Before us, we have the City Council approve the capital improvement stabilization appropriation as reported by the City Auditor. On a roll call vote, please.
Roll call, Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes, and Council President Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes, the transfers from the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund have been approved.
Thank you, Councilors.
While under suspension, we have a request from a constituent and a resident to come forward. What they wants to speak before the City Council. Is Wayne Rose in the audience?
How are you?
State your name and address for the record, please.
Wayne Rose, 22 Fairfield Street. The proposed correspondent, you guys all voted for a program called Safe Saturdays.
Mr. President, could we read whatever the communication was?
Excuse me?
Could we read what the communication was so I understand what's going on?
Communication from Wayne Rose relative to Safe Saturdays. Very brief. Continue.
I think I wrote a little more than that.
Well, it's, so you can make your
Do
presentation.
they all have this in front of them?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So, this body unanimously approved funding for a program called Safe Saturdays that took children off the street on a Saturday night and put them in a gym from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. You voted to fund it, yet I never heard anything back from it. I'm wondering what the mayor did with it, where it went, was it vetoed, why it was vetoed. It's a program that was working. We had 50 children on a Saturday night in a gym off the streets of Revere, ages 12 to 20. So I'd like to know what happened to it. I'd also like to know if you guys would be willing to vote on funding it again. Send it back to the mayor. If he wants to deny it, let him deny it.
We have better than that tonight, sir. We have a Director of Public Parks and Recreation who's going to address this body in response to this communication. As soon as you're completed, he's going to come forward with what he has to say.
Can I speak after him?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Director?
Good evening, everybody. Michael Hinojosa, 37 Amelia Place, Director of Parks and Recreation. So back in 2019, in our budget, we put forward what we call open gym. So to date, in budget 2019, fiscal year 2019, we've had 32 open gyms on Saturday night. We've moved it from gym to gym, but we finally found a spot at Revere High School. So every Saturday night from 6 to 9, we have an open gym. We average from 40 to, I think our highest was 72 kids. So very successful. So everything that Mr. Rose was asking for, we've already done. It's in our budget. It's in fiscal year 2020 budget again. So, very. Yeah.
So, anything else to say? Is that it?
Well, I mean, other than it's funded, you guys funded it, so we have an overtime budget, we have custodian budget, so.
So through you to John, when did this start, the program? Because I didn't know about the program, or I would have asked people to go down to the program.
So it started, I think it was the first week of October. We've had 32 of them.
Of 2019?
2018.
18,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. So back in press release from the mayor, back on September of 11th, 2018, is this whole open gym.
Yeah, I didn't know the age groups or where it was located or anything like that. I think it's a great thing.
Grade 6 through 12.
Yeah.
Yep.
Through you to Mr. Rose, when did your program start and end?
I believe it started, I know it started in November of 2017, I believe.
So 2017 to...
And it ran till about April. Then I came in for the funding. And actually, I asked Tony Zambuto about this, Councilor Zambuto, last week. He knew nothing about this program. This is every Saturday night in a gym. It's news to me.
I mean, I think that's great. So let's try and get the kids that you were involved with down at the high school and get them there. It's too bad that it seemed like there's been almost like a year lag time between the city getting it up and your program actually not being funded for it. I got a question. Is there any type of waivers or insurance issues that people have to sign in order to be in that gym?
No, because it's, the city's self-insured, so we it's like any other program that we run.
Okay, because that was an issue that Mr. Rose faced, and I was kind of perplexed to hear that from him, that was one of the things that he got from the city, because having been involved in intramural sports prior and with my children, you know them, I mean, never had an issue with that, but thank you for putting that.
Right, so just to clarify, if, Mr. Rose came in, rented a gym, he wanted to open it up for kids, it's the same as if you were a coach.
If you did it.
Yeah, same as if you were a coach and you wanted a little extra gym time, you come in, you pay for the gym, and you run a program but.
So now Mr. Rose
need,
can tell his group to come join you, and we can finally put the city together and make something worthwhile.
Very simple, but right now it's
through that we can network, and other children might take an involvement in that, and it's a win-win for our city.
Nope, the mayor funded it, and loved it. And, that's it.
Very, very
Mr. President.
Sorry, Councilor Zambuto.
Since my name was mentioned, I did speak to Mr. Rose about this the other night. I didn't know the particular program, but I did follow up with the mayor, and I did get all this information, and that they were doing more than what was originally intended. So I knew you were going to find this out, and that's what I found out. But shame on me for not knowing this program existed. And but I think credit should be given to everybody here, because Mr. Rose had an idea, the city picked it up and is actually doing it, and there's time for kids, and it's a win-win for everybody here.
It was also issued in the fall flyer that went out to all the kids.
Shame on me for not.
No, I every social media outlet. I mean, that's always a battle, right? How do we get in front of people?
True,
How do we get,
true.
so.
That's great.
Thank you, guys.
very, very
Mr.
much
President?
for your attendance.
I just have
Councilor
one more
Rizzo.
thing.
Mr. President,
Councilor Rizzo.
I just want to, just before we wrap this up, I'm glad that the program exists, but, I think we would all be remiss, if we didn't thank Mr. Rose for
Absolutely.
starting that program and taking these kids off the street. That's always been something that's been very, very important to me, to give kids options to do things, to get them off the street. And, he basically paved the way, as far as I'm concerned, for this program. So you've got a lot to be proud of there. And, you've got 50 now, and according to Michael, up to 72 kids now that are off the street on a Saturday night. And let's hope we can just continue to enhance that program. But thank you for paving the way.
I'd like to say one thing. I have correspondence from Mayor Rigo telling me he denied it because I had no insurance. If he wants to deny it, that's fine, but I have the correspondence. I can pull him up, I can bring him here, I can show him to each and every one of you. So where this program came from, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of information.
Thank you for your
Point of
input,
information,
Councilor
Mr. President.
Morbido.
Through you to Mr. Anahosa, I think because he's a third party and if he's renting out the gym, he needs liability insurance. Is that correct?
Yeah, everybody's a third party, but if you're renting a gym for a league or something like that, you must, if somebody gets hurt or something like that, it's not on the city side, right? Yeah. So, right. Yeah, so just as, prior to this, we have had open gyms. We also had a pilot program, so we had about 10 open gyms over the course of fiscal year 2018 to see how this was going to play out. Where this program came from is not a surprise because this is what we do, so I
Thank you, Mr. Director, for your attendance. Thank you, Mr. Rose, for all you do for the community, and the City Council appreciates any effort that can come forward from any resident wishing to put forth their actions and get results like they have, and it's certainly a plus for our community.
Can I say one more thing? About the insurance, when you guys unanimously voted to fund the program, you unanimously voted to fund it. That means insurance and everything. So I still don't know what he's talking about.
But as long as we got a program in place,
I get it.
we got it now.
Now I know. I
And
can
now
put it
you
on
know,
Facebook.
get
I can get a bunch of kids.
Get your kids to come and join in that, and everybody wins in this particular case. Next calendar? Absolutely. On the next order of business, so ordered.
Legislative Affairs Subcommittee report.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to say that our Legislative Affairs Subcommittee met today and on this day, April 22nd, 2019, also Earth Day. And it was, we had voted in favor of a plastic bag ban to be implemented throughout the city with details beginning on July 1st of 2019. The vote from the council was we had all in favor except one, so it was approved through the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee, and I'd like us to vote on that this evening.
On the motion from the chairperson, ordered to a second reading, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered. Ordered on a third and final reading, all in favor, all opposed? A roll call for engrossment and non-daement on ordinance prohibiting the distribution of single-use disposable plastic shopping bags.
Councilor
Madam Clerk.
Janino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo.
Yes?
Yes. Councilor Rotundo.
No.
No. Councilor Zambuto.
No.
No. And Council President Guinasso.
Yes.
Yes. The ordinance is engrossed and ordained.
Mr. President,
File for
Councilor
reconsideration.
Janino?
can we motion to suspend rules for reconsideration?
Motion to
Hope-
suspend rules, all in favor, all opposed, the order does not prevail.
You did. Thank you.
Good job, councilors.
Next item on the agenda.
Chairperson Jessica Janino will give us her appointment subcommittee.
Point of order,
State your points, Councilor.
in order to make an ordinance change, don't we need 8? No? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. What a great way to start off my subcommittee report. So, earlier this evening, the City of Revere Appointment Subcommittee met to discuss multiple appointments that were before us. There were 2 new appointments for Lynch Construction, as well as Dr. Kong for the Board of Health. There was a reappointment for Rapid Flow as a licensed drain layer. There was also a new appointment for Luigi Ciccone Masonry for a licensed drain layer. Reappointment for J&A Contracting. Reappointment of Nino Construction. Reappointment of our election commissioner, Diane Colella. Reappointment of Henry Mancini to the Revere Housing Authority. And the reappointment of J. Marchese and Son as a licensed drain layer. Those were all voted unanimously in favor by our subcommittee. The only one that I ask we hold in committee, Mr. President, is calendar item 19076. They did not appear before us this evening, and I believe there was an issue with a bond. So I'd like to keep that in my committee, but the others I'd like to take up as a whole favorable this evening.
Thank you for a very nice report, Councilor. On
you,
the
Mr. President.
Councilor Chairwoman Jessica Janino's report, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 20, communication from the mayor requesting an amendment to the revised ordinances of the City of Revere relative to trash collection.
That will be ordered to a public hearing on May 20th.
Calendar item number 21, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Camdell Construction as a licensed drain layer.
Refer to Appointment Subcommittee.
Calendar item number 22, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of J. Masterson Construction as a licensed drain layer.
Refer to Appointment Subcommittee.
Calendar item number 23, communication from the mayor relative to the Unit B Memorandum of Agreement.
Shall the City Council approve the appropriation necessary to fund the memorandum of agreement between the City of Revere and Unit B covering the period from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021? Roll call is in order.
Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers is absent. Councilor Rizzo. Yes. Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. The Unit B Memorandum of Agreement has been approved. Calendar item number 24, communication from the mayor relative to a loan order in the amount of $6.7 million for the Phase 10 construction CWSRF project number 4487.
Order to a public hearing on May 20th.
Calendar item number 25, communication from the mayor relative to a loan order in the amount of $1.5 million for Phase 11 field investigations CWSRF planning project number 4532.
Order to a public hearing on May 20th. Motions.
Calendar item number 27, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the City of Revere proceed with a 6-month moratorium on all residential properties greater than 6 units within the City of Revere. Further, that the mayor provide the City Council with any scope of work related to the master plan, retained traffic studies from previous development, and/or any proposed development communicated to the mayor's office or Bob O'Brien to help with the study of future development impact in the city's critical infrastructures, education, and health of the community.
Councilor Rotundo.
I think that's a mouthful. You know, I drive down the beach, I drive down Broadway. Between the congestion from traffic, from just to the point, when are we going to stop building residential properties? And much to my chagrin, I have voted for them in the past, but at what point do we stop and recognize that we're literally over the point of no return? I'm down at the beach the other day with my girlfriend coming back from the doctor's, and it literally took me an hour. to get from point A to point B within the city of Revere. I mean, it was quicker to get from Boston to Revere than it was. So for me, I know the mayor has a master plan that's going about. I would like for him to kind of, update us from time to time regarding that particular issue, or maybe one of his subordinates, so that we have an idea of what the master plan, is going to look like. And more importantly, the traffic studies that go along with it, so that we can kind of figure out if we are going to do any development, how do we do it in the future, utilizing, mass transportation, the MBTA, et cetera. But I think this is pretty much speaks for itself. I've been down this road before, and quite frankly, I just think enough is enough.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Back in the summer of 2015, I had proposed a 2-year moratorium when we signed an agreement with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council to do a master plan for the city back at that time, almost 4 years ago. And the reason that the moratorium on large-scale development was proposed to go in conjunction with the master planning process was just that, so that we could rethink and reimagine and rezone our community that we all know is outdated with respect to our zoning ordinances, given the number of people that live here in the city now, the number of vehicles we have on our roads. We wanted to take a breath and be able to go in and reassess the needs of the community. Unfortunately, that didn't go anywhere. And since that time, we've seen all the new developments going up, and they continue to go up. Right now, above and beyond what people see, there's another 1,400 units that are permitted or in the permitting process, and that's not counting the 3,000 or close to 3,000 at Suffolk Downs, and now I hear the number in East Boston is going up to 10,000 before the BRA. It's unimaginable. On every level, from traffic to school overcrowding, to infrastructure, it just goes on and on and on. And it's great that we're now, 4 years later, back into a master planning process, but I'm fearful there's not much to plan anymore. We have Wonderland, and then beyond that, I'm concerned someday maybe with Showcase Cinemas, if people get more into Netflix and Hulu and everything else where they can order online, is that going to be the future site of an apartment complex for another 2,000 units? We need to start thinking about these things and putting protections in place. I didn't know Councilor Rotundo was putting this motion in, but clearly I support it, and I plan on voting for it. I would have actually said anything over 3 units, but, he has over 6. But at least we're not, right now, as I say, we've got over 1,400 units that's going up. Nothing we can do about it. Those have been permitted. Or actually some, strike that. There are some. I think there might be 200 or 300 or 400 units that are now in the planning process that we'll have a chance to vote on. But they're being proposed. And many of these are coming with variances. Many of these are coming with no parking, not adequate parking. It's just crazy. The city council just went through this resident sticker parking program, which is great, for a lot of areas. It's not great. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not perfect. There are areas that we're going to have to see how it all goes. But clearly there's a parking problem in a lot of our community, a lot of our neighborhoods. But yet we grant variances to large-scale developments. There was one in particular, they got a variance for 60 vehicles. 60. How do you get a someone putting up a 2-family house can't get a variance for an extra car or 2. They get shot down. But yet a major developer gets a variance for 60 cars. So, I support it. I supported it back in 2015. I support it today, and I will continue to support it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zambudo, would you like this going to your zoning subcommittee?
Yes.
Or would you like a vote on this evening?
No, I think it needs to go to committee.
Zoning subcommittee.
Calendar item number 28, motion presented by Councilor Guanasso that the mayor request the MBTA to set up a meeting at Revere City Hall to allow residents to purchase Charlie Card passes due to the work being done on the Tobin Bridge. There has been a high demand for these passes, and many residents are unsure of the process to obtain one. Councilor Zambudo is recused from this motion.
To my colleagues, if you allow me the privilege of speaking from the chair, this has been a major issue in the last couple of weeks based on the fact that we've just been notified by the authorities that Massport and anybody else, that the Tobin Bridge will be under repair for the next 2 to 3 years. This is a major inconvenience for all of us in our community, and we certainly are aware of the conditions on a daily basis. There are many folks that I spoke with that had no knowledge and idea how to secure a Charlie Pass. They didn't know what they had to do. They were like a little apprehensive for those folks that never had the opportunity or the need to use public transportation. And namely, one of those individuals is me. I never use public transportation, and I find that a couple of weeks ago I had a doctor's appointment. I had to leave 2 hours early, and lo and behold, as the way it would be, there was nobody on the bridge. I was there in 15 minutes, but I'm waiting in the doctor's office nonetheless for an hour and a half. It's crazy. So I ask and urge all people to participate in this, and what I would like to do is to reach out and to get a member of the MBTA to come forward on a night we call Revere Night for Charlie Passes, and have a convenient time for everybody, whether it be some hours in the day and some hours in the evening, to secure these passes. I would love to have that happen. And with the good wishes of this council, and I know there's some councils want to speak on this motion, I seek your support to get this in our building here, so our residents can have the convenience of coming to City Hall to secure a pass. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. You 110% have my support. I think it's a great motion. And I'd also go further to say that I know we've talked about this before in terms of the Tobin and tolling, but I think that our residents should be offered a discount from the MBTA. Yes. We have 3 train stations in our town. Their neighborhoods are inundated with cars from those train stations. They're impacted every day, and they're only going to be more impacted over the next 3 years when more people are moving to public transportation while these repairs are going on. We're affected by the backup of traffic that these repairs are going to cause. So I think, and the high insurance rates that we have to deal with. So because of the increased traffic this is going to cause, because of the influx in cars that this is going to cause in those 3 Blue Line stops, our residents should get a little bit of something back for the hardships that it causes them. So I support you 110%, and I think that we should go a little bit further and send them a letter and talk to them about what discounts and programs they can offer our residents while they're going through this transition.
Good point. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, 4 years ago, and just so you know, you can get a senior Charlie card. You're eligible.
You had to get that in.
You're eligible for that.
You really had to get that in, right?
And, the seniors can get reduced rates. And 4 years ago, I set up a program at the senior center. And Steve Fielding knows how to do the process for senior Charlie cards. And we've done over 300 senior Charlie cards down there over the last 3 years. And I'm sure if there's a lot more pressure to get more senior cards, the mayor can get an intern to help him take the pictures and do the paperwork to get it into the MBTA.
That's exactly what I had in mind.
And as far as the regular residents, if they want to do a separate program here at City Hall, you can use the chamber during the day and have someone from Steve's shop help move things along. So it's a great idea, but we know half of it's already in process. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to introduce Julie tomorrow to, because I know that this is something she's currently working on and will be implementing soon. So if you'd give her the floor, that'd be great.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Julie DeMauro, Active Transportation Manager for the City of Revere. I saw this on the agenda tonight, so that's why I stayed. But we are already in contact with the MBTA. We have been since February. In the year 2020, they will do away with all cash on any of their systems. So any of their trolleys, their buses. If you want to get on a bus, you have to have a Charlie card that's already preloaded. So we have been talking with them about how that is going to work and what that's going to look like. One of the things that they approached us with is actually selling the Charlie cards within Revere City Hall or within the parking department. It's something that we're working on right now. Chelsea is currently doing that. What they did is they just paid the MBTA $2,000 for $405 preloaded cards. The person goes to the treasurer's office, they give them the $5, they get the Charlie card. So it's an equal exchange. We have talked about trying to help our residents who are, more disadvantaged, kind of be using some community development block fund grant money for that. They would have to show some other sign of assistance, and we would give them a discounted Charlie card, but it would actually get the Charlie cards in their hands. And then we're also talking with the MBTA about how to reload these cards right here at the City Hall. And that's something that's going to be coming, but we're working on it. So any support that you can give us, that would be great.
Well, we obviously want to back that, but we want to do it as quick as possible based on the fact that, time is occurring and any length of time involved is going to be more inconvenience to our citizens. So, and I also know that the library provides this service for the children of our community, so they could go there.
Right.
So I think an educational process, maybe through the City of Revere and advertisements on cable, on social, on the media, the media side, the 2 newspapers that we have, to educate people. But we need a couple of nights in this building for people of Revere to come and feel comfortable receiving this, rather than going to the senior center and other places. This is a more familiar place to most people.
Right, and that's something we're working with them right now. We've been following the Chelsea pilot, and it seems to be taking off, but there is a lot of signage, especially at the bus stops as well, like in their bus shelters, there's the sign that says, go to the Chelsea City Hall and get your Charlie card for $5. It's in different languages. Ideally, we want to make sure that we're serving all of the populations that would need a Charlie card. So we want to make sure that they'll be able to come at a time that's convenient for them as well.
Right.
So, we'd be more than happy to get that program up and going sooner rather than later.
Yes, that's a great thing. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. When will this take place, you figure?
We're still trying to finalize everything. So I would hope in the next couple of months. We just need the funding really to pay for the cards up front. But really, once we give them the funding for it, we'd be able to buy the cards right away.
I don't know why we can't just do this today, tomorrow, and expedite this right away, to be quite honest with you. If it's a vote of the council, I'll propose a motion. We can do it tonight and then forward it to the mayor. The mayor can expedite the funding. This should not take more than 2 days. This is a very simple thing.
Okay.
More importantly, do we need interpreters? Because we have a large population of people that speak Spanish and Arabic. And I'm willing to translate in Spanish. My Arabic ain't that great, but,
So what the T actually does, they provide the marketing materials for you to put anywhere you want, and in the different languages as well. So we would tap into that. But definitely, if we would have a night at City Hall where people could come and buy their Charlie cards, we would need additional assistance and additional languages for people to actually converse with the people that are buying. So that would be great.
Julie, can you keep us in the loop? Send your communication to the clerk so she can disseminate that to our body, and so we have an up-to-date daily.
Yes. Yep.
Because this is important, and a lot of area residents are asking about this program. So some of them don't even know it's available, because now it's going to be a first-time new thing to them, and so we have to kind of introduce that to them.
Before Ira brought the Charlie cards to the senior center back 4 years ago, they had to go into town. They had to go into town to get the Charlie card. They had to go right in. That's.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep us in the loop.
I definitely will.
Thank you very much. No.
Mr. President, can we go to suspension of rules to put a motion so we can fund this? I just literally ask for a motion to have the mayor appropriate.
We can appropriate that with the motion, and any funding required, we're glad to do that. The city, that's what we have the money for on the emergency funding and rainy day fund. It's pouring out, so we need some cash in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Mr. President, just a point of information. Are we looking to actually give out Charlie cards with money on it? Because normally...
No, they're going to have to place their own money.
Yeah, they have to put their own money on it, okay. Yeah. So this is very short funding, whatever we have to do to make it happen.
They have to be made aware of that. They have to, it's like a credit card.
Okay.
You have to fund the credit card. We can't service that. Yeah, absolutely.
Just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Madam Clerk? calendar item number 29, I think is moot based on the fact that thankfully the Stop and Shop and the union has come to agreement. Councilor Rotundo, did you hear that?
I did, I'm just trying to think of,
How you can talk about something that's moot?
well, I was just going to say, to be quite
Because
honest.
they saw this motion, they settled right away.
I think that was the case.
All right.
But I'm just wondering if we could just send it along and just show them our support nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Clerk so noted.
Calendar item number 30, motion presented by Councilor Zambudo, that the City Council delay a vote on the city's proposed plastic bag ban ordinance until the legislature enacts Senate Bill 462, an act reducing plastic bag pollution. This act would apply to the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in accordance with the proposed language of S 462, any municipality with an existing ordinance or bylaw banning plastic bags shall be null and void on August 1st, 2019.
Councilor Zambudo.
Well, this motion has become a moot point because my colleagues wouldn't listen to me. I'm sure you'll tell me in a couple of months we should have listened to you, and I'll tell you I told you so. But nevertheless, that's where we are now. I don't think I'll have more than one vote to pass this.
Do you wish to withdraw it, which would be favorable to all of us?
I don't know. No, I don't. You wouldn't withdraw your
Teasing
motion.
you,
Why
sir.
should I withdraw mine?
I'm teasing you, sir. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Actually, this is the reason why I had voted no on the ordinance here in the city of Revere, knowing that the state was going to take this up. So I just wanted to make that clear.
We want to show the state and all the world that we are leaders in this community. We're not followers. Any other councilors wishing to speak?
Mr. President,
Councilor Novoselsky.
can I just a point of personal privilege? Unfortunately, I had to leave the chamber during the vote, and I'd like to be recorded as in favor of it if I could. Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure we can allow that, Madam Clerk. I think you're too... You're out of the chamber, Councilor. Councilor Chairwoman Jessica Giannino, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Council President Guanasso. This council deals in facts, and the fact is, we don't know if the state's going to pass it. We don't know what the state's going to do. They could sit on it for we don't know how long. So we're being proactive, and I think it's a win-win either way. If the state passes it, we're ahead of the game, and if they don't, we're protecting ourselves as a coastal community. So thank you, Mr. President, for being so forward-thinking and for taking the time to research the issue and consider it.
Thank you.
Mr. President, point of information. As the motion reads, it says the council delay a vote on the city's plastic bag ordinance. How do we delay it if we already did it?
That's why it's moot.
Okay, so why would he
that make a
withdraw
lot
the
of
motion?
sense?
He has to withdraw the motion.
So, wait a minute, doesn't that make a lot of sense?
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was voting on if
Motion
there
is
was going to be a
withdrawn.
vote.
Motion is removed because it's moot.
Council President, I might
Yes, sir.
say a few things. if
State
you
your
don't
name and
mind.
address for the record, please.
Rocco Falzoni, 55 Toscano Ave. I can concur with Councilor Zambudo and Councilor Rotundo has said about plastic bags, double telephone poles, street lights that are out, and I can concur with Councilor McKenna as well. The situation that I'm in on Toscano and Astor Ave in Ward 6 is a major, major problem, like I said. But I'm not here to repeat myself. I'm just here to say that you have no idea what this sounds like. Of all the problems we have in Revere, we're talking about plastic bags, plastic straws.
This is all we can talk on right now, sir.
I understand that. You have no idea how ridiculous it sounds. If you have a dog, I feel bad people who have dogs. When you walk your dog, what are you going to do? There's no plastic bags. We got a major issue here.
No, the only issue we can talk about right now on this motion 30.
Yeah, that's motion 30 is I can concur with Councilor
And so that's the
Rotundo
only
and
discussion we
Councilor
can hear. That's
Zambudo
only
had said.
germane to this issue.
Point blank. There's no other reason
for
why
or
I can't
against it?
say. Listen, we're having a public meeting here.
Yes, and we're talking
And
about
every time I
plastic
come up
bags,
here,
not
you
poles
seem
or
to
anything
cut me
else.
short and shut me off. It's not fair. I'm here to discuss something that's very important for me as a taxpayer, and I can talk for everybody that lives in Revere as well. So if I can be the voice for Astor and Toscano in Ward 6, I intend to do so.
About
I
plastic
just
bags?
made a motion, that's all.
If you're talking about plastic bags, sir, you can talk.
Exactly, you're
Anything
absolutely
other
right,
than
that's
that,
what
you
I'm talking
cannot
about.
talk.
So I said my case.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
We appreciate that.
Thanks for
And you
listening.
never were shut off the last time you were here. You were given all the respect in the world. You came here ready to blast 3 individuals, which is not this is not the platform to do that. You can convey your message in an orderly fashion, tell people your views, but you don't have the right to scold anybody.
Sir?
It never happened as I'm president.
Excuse me.
Never happened, never happened.
Point of
First of all,
information,
you have to have
Mr.
some
President.
respect for your elders. I'm not done yet. You have no idea when I found out something.
Thank you, Tony. Wait a minute, I gave you every opportunity. We're speaking on the issue, sir. Madam Clerk.
Calendar item number 31, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the Director of Parking to use discretion when enforcing the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 90, Section 28.5, relative to the towing of vehicles after receiving 5 or more violations. Please note that the statute reads, the parking clerk may notify, as opposed to shall notify, the chief of police when requesting a vehicle be towed for delinquent violations. Though towing has been done in the past, in accordance with state law, the current enforcement policy of towing any vehicle that has received 5 or more violations that have not been paid after 21 days is draconian and affects the poorest and most vulnerable residents of our community.
Councilor Rotundo.
Can we put this in committee so we can talk about it?
Absolutely. Which committee would you like it to go to, sir? Zoning? Councilor Zambudo, zoning?
Anything's fine, whatever, I don't care where it goes. Yeah, give it a public safety.
Public safety, absolutely. The Chair of Public Safety willing to take on the responsibility of this motion? Thank you.
Calendar item number 32, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the mayor request the MBTA and the Department of Public Works to review the installation of steel posts at the corner of Broadway and Park Avenue westbound to guard pedestrians from large buses and trucks driving over the curbs and handicap accessible ramps. This is happening much too frequently and will eliminate these issues.
Council Vice President Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was put in, believe it or not, on Wednesday, and lo and behold, Thursday morning, I woke up and found out that a bus in Chelsea had struck a pedestrian. And so I would never take advantage of a tragedy to put a motion forth, but this, just so everyone's aware, this was put well before that. But what I did want to note is on Central Ave and Broadway, there are some posts for when large vehicles are taking the right going down to Central Ave from Broadway. They won't jump up on the curb. This is happening every day. Every bus that goes and takes a right onto Park Ave from Central Fire Station is climbing up on the curb. So I'm not quite sure if it's because of the new sizes of the buses or if it's because of the density of the vehicles that are on the other side of Park Ave, whatever it may be, but we can't have them literally jumping the curb over on a handicap crosswalk every time they take that right onto Park Ave. It's a public safety issue, and we need to reach out to the MBTA, and we need to get that resolved quickly. Thank you.
Good point. On the motion, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
And Councilor Zambudo was noted to be recused from discussion on that matter.
Okay.
Calendar item number 33, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission and Department of Public Works to install an additional crosswalk on Park Ave between Dale Street and the Hill School crosswalk locations.
Council Vice President Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very simple. During some community meetings we had in a few weeks past, some PTA moms from the Hill School that do a lot of walking to school recognize that coming down Park Ave to go to Hill School is they have to go from the crosswalks. They start at Dale Street, and then the next crosswalk is in front of the Hill School, and they were hoping to have one more crossing route so that they can come across Park Ave more safely. So if we can try and get that done, I'd appreciate getting that taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. On the motion, all in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 34, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request Capital Waste to place city-issued trash barrels back on the sidewalk as opposed to leaving them in the street.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this was put in because I had a number of complaints by my constituents. 2 things that they addressed to me that barrels were open after the trash was empty, and if it was raining out, they had to empty their barrels because they were filled with water. And the second thing was some of these barrels were left on the street after they were empty. So I'm asking Mayor Arrigo to just contact Capital Waste and just ask them to put the barrels back on the sidewalk, because the city paid a lot of money for these barrels to be bought. So the other thing is, I did reach out to a rep at Capital Waste, and he said the reason why they leave the lids open is because a supervisor does go by to see if the trash is empty. And that is just a sign that says, we emptied the trash. This way, a resident can't put their trash out after the fact. So they're showing that the trash is empty, we did our job, and if any other trash comes out afterwards, they know that this was done after the trash was removed. So that's why the lids are open. I just wanted my constituents to know that. And I know it might be an inconvenience when it rains, but this just tells the trash company that the trash was removed by the trash company. Thank you.
I think we will get their cooperation based on the fact that I made a motion that's almost similar to this, that the barrels be placed upright rather than thrown about. And they've worked, and I haven't seen one barrel laying on its side since I made that request. So I think they will attend to our needs, and it's a good motion, Councilor. On the motion, all in favor, all opposed, so ordered.
Calendar item number 35, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request the city solicitor to draft special legislation amending Chapter 185 of the Acts of 1983, an act establishing a traffic commission in the city of Revere, so as to provide for public hearing notice requirements and regulation adoption notification to property owners on streets affected by the adoption of traffic commission regulations. The only notification requirements for the adoption of regulations are that public notice shall be given by publication in full of the proposed adoption, alteration, or repeal not less than once in each of 3 successive weeks in one or more newspapers published or distributed in the city. The current law does not provide adequate transparency to property owners affected by the adoption of traffic commission regulations.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you. So this holiday weekend, a previous approval 3 months ago to make 3 streets in Beachmont one-ways took place. No robocalls or letters went out from the city to residents affected by these changes. Signs were put up, and then people came home and they found out their streets were transformed. I didn't even know, I'm the counselor, and I didn't even know this was happening until someone called me and said, you know, the signs are going up for the one-ways? And I said, what? And they said no residents were received any notification. A robocall went out at 3:30 in the afternoon. These signs went up at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because of the lack of communication by the city, I ended up taking the brunt of this on a holiday weekend, receiving over 50 calls, 20 text messages, and a number of Facebook comments and complaints. Going forward, and this is, I know this is not, this motion it needs to be tweaked, but going forward, I am asking that the city be more transparent in their communication to our residents. City departments be more responsible to communicate the changes taking place in the city to the proper channels so our residents have at least 2 weeks notification. And you know, a lot of, when the robocalls go out, a lot of residents don't have landlines. And some of these cell numbers are not listed. So a lot of these people are not notified. A letter going out to each mailbox, to each resident, and Endicott Ave is not, I didn't get any complaints from Brad Street Ave or Crest because I went door to door, or I didn't go door to door. The residents, 2 residents of those streets went door to door and told the people that lived there what was happening. No one went to Endicott Ave. So no communication was sent out to these residents. So I'm just asking that the city put out a 2-week notice for anything. If a building's going down, if the street's getting changed, whatever it is, that we notify our residents. I think it's one of the biggest complaints that the residents have, that they don't know about. Things go up, they don't know. So that's what I'm asking. So I would really like to see the city more transparent in communicating to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Actually, I want to thank Councilor McKenna to respond to a lot of the questions that were asked of me. Quite frankly, I got a text message over this issue from the city and had put it on my Facebook page just to, get people to understand that this is what took place. And the onslaught that incurred, I just, between phone calls and Facebook, I was just a little bit overwhelmed with them. And so we can do better. We can do better as a community to let the people that we, represent know what's going on and when. I would hope that perhaps, as stated by Councilor McKenna, that the city could send a letter to the homes. I mean, we've gotten census letters in which quasi-political things were put into it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we can send letters home to people, let them know that their street is now completely changed. And, it's a safety issue. Imagine if half those people didn't realize that they were going up the wrong way at the wrong time. Someone could get killed. So we can do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to say, I feel for Councilor McKenna. I know how many calls she probably got, because I got many calls, and I'm just an at-large councilor that, one of 5 that represents that area, so I can only imagine that she was inundated, and it's not a matter of whether people were for it or against it. I mean, you're going to have varying opinions anytime you make those type of changes, but it's the total lack of communication. We had a situation in poor Councilor McKenna's ward not too long ago when they demoed a whole entire building. The neighbors didn't know it was coming down. They had dust all over their cars and, chaos in the neighborhood while this building's coming down. Absolutely no communication. And now you got 3 major streets that had major changes that impacted those residents, whether it was for the better or for the worse. They had no idea that it was happening. So I can certainly attest to Councilor McKenna not knowing anything about it, because none of us did unless we were directly involved, which, let's face it, how often does the Traffic Commission directly involve us in things they do? Though, there's legal notices that are posted all the time, but unless you're inclined, unless it's something that's directly impacting you, and even if it was, you've got to go search it out in the Revere Journal and the legal ads. I mean, that's kind of crazy. There should be a lot more communication. So I just want to say my heart goes out to you, Councilor McKenna. I know you went through a lot, and but we were all in the same boat. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I know what she's going through and what she went through, and my heart bleeds for her. But just process of the Traffic Commission, which I've been through a lot. When the Traffic Commission approves a one-way street, which must have been requested by someone, doesn't matter when, please. And it takes them, they have to advertise it, they have to have a public hearing on it, so it may take 2 or 3 months to get to the public hearing and then have them approve it. Then they have to send the request to the Public Works, the sign department, to have them put it up. And I'm not blaming anybody, it's just the amount of work that has to be done. But maybe there should be some notification from Public Works to the city councilor or the ward councilor, or somehow get it out to the people of that street or those streets that are affected by this, that they will be putting the signs up at a certain time, whether it be 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, but at least the people will notify that, are notified that it's going to happen. But that's the process. And unfortunately, the sign department has so many different work orders. They just go along, and the first one that comes from the top, they do. But something like this, when it's that large, they should maybe notify the neighborhood, even by newspaper, or email, or Facebook, or Twitter, whichever way they want to do it. But, in that kind of numbers they should be, okay? So those are my recommendations, my information, and Sorry, Counselor, that you had to go through it.
Thank you, Counselor. State your name and address for the record, please.
Eric Labadecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. Thank you, Councilor McKenna, for taking this issue on. This has been a long-standing issue. I know not too long ago that Neponset Street and parts of Oak Island were given residential parking only signs, and none of those residents were properly informed. There was a lot of outrage and backlash about that. And even just tonight, I just found out at 4 o'clock, there's a meeting at the Point of Pines Yacht Club on Gibson Park rebuilding. That communication didn't come out until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So how is someone reasonably going to attend that meeting in such a short period of notification? So I think the city can do a much better job informing the public of some of these changes, especially when it's a safety issue like in your ward. And I just want to say thank you for taking this on. My other question for the council, and maybe you guys might know, maybe not, the Traffic Commission was previously scheduled to meet this Thursday at 5 p.m., and there's been some communication that now they've pushed that to 4 p.m. It's my understanding that this is supposed to be for a public hearing, and much of the working public works 9 to 5. So I don't know how productive it's going to be to have a public hearing when the public is at work. Can you guys please share with me what time that meeting is scheduled for?
I believe it's 4 o'clock, and it's based on the fact that they intend it to be a very lengthy meeting, and they're trying to give it ample time to give it its proper due. And I think anybody who has an interest in it should have an opportunity to be there, but I think 4 o'clock is the time that was scheduled by the Traffic Commission. And we look forward to a very productive meeting, I hope. And it's a very important issue, resident parking, for all of our community. We want to get it off on the right foot. We want all our citizens to benefit from that. There'll be some that don't, but we can modify that as we go along. So it's a very important meeting, Thursday evening, 4 o'clock, before the Traffic Commission.
Point of information, Mr.
State your
President.
point, sir.
Also, just for future reference, anyone watching, for you, if you cannot make a meeting, all emails can be sent via email, written, mailed. So a form of communication, some form of communication can get to the Traffic Commission, and it will be it could be read, so each member can actually read it. So okay. It will be on file.
Thank you for that information. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further business before the Revere City Council, this Revere City Council will stand adjourned
Point of personal privilege.
until May 6, 2019.
Point of personal privilege.
State your point, sir.
This Saturday, our city will be having its annual Beautify Revere event. It's this Saturday, April 27th, from 8 to 12:30. Check-in is at the American Legion at 8 a.m. So it's a great event to pitch in together, help clean our city. I encourage residents to come, bring your friends, family. It's going to be a great event.
Yep, we urge all residents to please join in with us. If they can't make it, the least you can do is clean up in front of your properties. Thank you.